Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Molly was born a sickly, weak little girl, and when old Grandma Nancy looked at her, she immediately said, "Not a survivor." "Grandma Nancy, what are you talking about?" said Vanessa. Grandma Molly quietly stroked her daughter Wendy's head. "The girl is weak. But so what? We're not all such great men now. And remember, this is after the war. What's there to look forward to? Yes, the time after the war is hard, and everyone needs women. How many of our girls had sons on the field and turned around, and the neighbor went home?" Wendy Ottensova gave birth to a daughter without a husband, having spent only one night with a pilot. "Yes," nodded the mother at her, but the daughter only waved her hand away. She realized that there were few men left after the war, and those who returned were, so to speak, worth their weight in gold. So having sat and cellars a little, Wendy decided just for herself to get a baby. What else does she need? Nothing. Just to feel like a mother to her child. And after all, it's always the continuation of her lineage. "But you wanted her to go out," the mother once said in a fit of anger, because she realized that there was one more lineage in the family, and they cannot pull. "Mom, didn't you raise me without a father? You gave birth to me unmarried, didn't you? Or have you forgotten?" After that, Vanessa just kept quiet and didn't say a word to her daughter. That's true. She gave birth to Wendy, too, by a soldier. But Vanessa was a poor but noble family, and knew her lineage almost to the beginning of the reign of Tsar Gorak. And then some obscure abrek came here, wanted her daughter, and that was it. You can't even get alimony from anyone. A daughter. How are we going to live? That's all my mother asked. I work at the bread factory. I work day shifts at night. I can take a part-time job as a watchman. You'll help me. We'll see if we can get the baby back on its feet. What's Molly's father's name anyway? Michael. He's just Michael. The mother just nodded her head and agreed, but not as eager as she could have been. And what happened after the granddaughter was born? Wendy worked 2 jobs to feed her family and buy wood for the furnace. But her health was failing. A cold that started with a trivial fever, then a cough, and then they took Wendy to the graveyard. Wendy to the graveyard. They buried her as best they could. Vanessa herself did not know how she would pull her granddaughter alone, because she was already 3 years old at that time. Don't worry. You're working at the bread factory, aren't you? You'll get by just fine. You'll give her to the kindergarten at the factory. Everything will be fine. That's what the local neighbors said. But Vanessa realized that her money and even the ration cards she received at the factory might not be enough. But gritting her teeth, she went to work every night, knowing that her Ukrainian granddaughter was the only one left at home. All that was left of her Wendy. Tears choked the old woman, for she herself reached out and tried to help everyone. "And these, you see, I get a lot of money. I wish you'd all go to hell. What I get, I give back to you, you bastard. And you're just looking for a way to get more. And stab me with my own piece." But the woman realized that she should not give up. After all, who would the little girl be left to? She was only 4 years old, but the little girl was beyond her years. Intelligent and smart, began to talk early. She understood everything, was not capricious. Vanessa, she was the only thing that kept her on this harmful light, and so probably would have gone to the dust by now for her daughter. And the higher powers saw it in a woman to live for another 5 years and to raise at least a little on her feet little girl to send to the 1st grade. Vanessa maybe will register the little girl for permanent residence. The director of the boarding school had known this family for a long time and tried her best to help the grandmother and her granddaughter. "It's like Jenna. You don't think I can feed her. She's dressed as well as anyone. She's not newer, but she's not starving. She may have potatoes and bread and whatnot. But you can see for yourself that she's a girl and cheerful. No, you understand. I don't doubt your strength, but the girl will be better off here. 3 meals a day, and we get new clothes from the factory. And I've put together, so to speak, what I could before Molly's package. The uniforms are new, don't you think? And some more of my kids' stuff I'll take care of. Thank you, Jenna, for caring. But you know, home is always better than that. When I'm dead, don't leave my baby behind. And Grandma's words were prophetic. Having finished the first grade, Molly and her grandmother were happy that the girl showed the best results in school. Vanessa rejoiced that her daughter had disobeyed and had given birth. And she's an old fool, almost a grandmother. Don't cry. Who hurt you? No one, granddaughter, no one. It's me who's happy about your success, and the fact that God has allowed me to live this time to admire you. Why don't we go to your mother's grave this weekend and visit her? Come on, Grandma, I learned the news at school. I'll tell her. Let her hear it in the next world and be happy. That's how it was decided. The weather was surprisingly nice that Sunday. It wasn't as hot as the day before. A light breeze. That's why it was easy for grandmothers and granddaughters to walk along the beaten path to the edge of the city. And here is the Pogost. The first crosses are already looking beautifully. This is where I be buried, thought the old woman, but immediately chased away such thoughts. There's nothing to think like that. She has a child in her arms, and smiling Vanessa stroked her granddaughter's head. Grandma, I'll give my mother a field of cornflowers. Let her enjoy the flowers. Okay, granddaughter, but I won't go far into the field. Just over the road here, pluck them for me to see. I was an old lady watching Molly pick wildflowers for her mother's grave. She had long been invested with doubts, should the girls speak, or wait a little longer. About the old warehouse bricked up in the wall of her old barracks. Vanessa was moved there almost immediately after the revolution, along with her parents, and they managed to grab a few small struggles in their haste, along with the family jewelry and a small bag of Tsarist coins. The family had stashed them in an old niche that had once been a heating vent. It was good that it was not used at that time, and that's why it turned out to be a wonderful hiding place. Vanessa knew about this stash, as well as her mother's and father's instructions before his death, that all this stuff should be taken only in case of emergency. Vanessa, I got you jammed by God. Sell jewelry only in case of emergency. Or better yet, don't touch it at all. Mommy, I understand. But if things get really bad. Vanessa, just so you understand what your mother said, I don't mind you selling it, but it's your legacy. You're the heir to a noble, albeit united, family. And I hope that this red scourge in the form of the Red Army will die out in due time. And then Mother coughed in another fit, overcoming his illness. Then you'll be able to claim your ancestry. Your great-grandmother was an empress herself. Mom, we're going to be fine. Well, we're not. Her mother died, as well as her father, from tuberculosis, leaving Vanessa to live in a communal apartment. The girl was already an adult and had the best education, so she easily got a job as a German teacher in a school and worked there until her old age. But now she had to go as a night watchman. Well, thank goodness Molly's talking or not. What about the treasure? Since her father and mother passed away, and she only took one antique ring from her daughter. My daughter needed the money for her medication, but that didn't help either. And now to tell them to a small child, even one as bright as Molly. The old woman sighed heavily and pushed the wicket gate of the local Pogost, almost half abandoned, about there being a local watchman, someone to watch over all the graves. It was out of the question. Just her and a few other parishioners who came here to see their dead. That's all. But hello, Evelyn. Molly and Molly are here to see you. Your daughter's coming over. She's gone to pluck some daisies besides cornflowers. And I'm not here yet. I want to consult with you. And the old woman sat down on an old ruined bench. Fix your handkerchief. She used to talk to her dead daughter like that at the grave. And the amazing thing was that Evelyn often came to her in her dreams and even gave her hints on what to do. That pleased Vanessa. It meant that her daughter could hear her, even in her dreams, but she was communicating with her. You realize, Evelyn, what's the matter? I can already feel my own demise. I'll see you in the next world soon. I'm not worried about Molly. She'll be fine. I mean, the principal of her school promised me she'd look after her. If anything, they'll put her in an orphanage or a boarding school. But should I tell her about the treasure buried in the wall? She's young and foolishly childish. She might have said too much. But to leave them to their fate like that. It's an old house. It'll either collapse or be torn down. And I won't last forever. What do I do? Give me a hint. But at that moment, Molly ran up to the grave and put a bouquet of daisies and cornflowers by the headboard. The girl was dreaming of running, and her braided tassels and hair glistened gold in the sun. Here, Mom, I brought you some wildflowers. Grandma says, do you like them? Grandma, what did you want to talk to Mom about? She's writing to her. What kind of gas? She hears everything. That's later, when my mother gives me an answer in my dream. Let me tell you. In the meantime, put some cakes on your mother's grave. Let her soul eat them. And the old woman handed her granddaughter 2 poppy seed cakes. Evelyn loved them very much when she was alive. Let her eat them like this. Vanessa wiped her tears. She shouldn't have shown her weakness in front of her granddaughter, or upset the child. And so the 2 generations sat on the grave, embraced and listened to the silence. Bird song and the wind slipping in the trees. Well, granddaughter, you've seen your mother, so let's go home. And you, Evelyn, rest. We won't bore you, and I'll be waiting for you in my dream tonight. You really only put your granddaughter to bed. And went to bed herself, as she immediately went to sleep. And so the woman sees her Evelyn Wushu. She is standing on a hill where their old house can be seen and points to their own windows. And then the house collapses, and in its place a high-rise rises out of the ground. So fast. And on top of it stands Molly. But the strangest thing about Molly is that she sees her not as a little girl, but as a grown-up lady, and so beautifully dressed. Oh, Lord, have mercy, Vanessa said, opening her eyes. But thank you, daughter. I guess I should tell you about the treasure, and I guess you can see it from up there. How will our Molly live? She got up and crossed herself in front of the icons, looked at her watch. Wow, she fell asleep at 400 hours. It's time to get up before tomorrow to cook the stove to stoke and feed the baby. When the table was set, the grandmother twitched something behind which stood the bed, granddaughter, and lightly stroked her hair. Get up. The pancakes with jam are ready. Grandma, why such luxury? I can make my granddaughter happy once in a while. And we have a conversation to have. The girl quickly jumped out of bed, slipped her bare feet into slippers, and went to wash her face, when gradually and stroking grandmother and dress was put on, and her hair was invented into 2 tight braids. Mo, as she was called by her household, Molly sat down at the table. There was no limit to her surprise. There was homemade milk and pancakes on the table, her favorite raspberry jam, eggs. Grandma, where's the money coming from? That's none of your granddaughter's business. You'd better eat something. And then we should talk over a cup of tea. When the girl had eaten and Vanessa poured herself a cup of tea, she sat opposite and thought she didn't know how to start. But she realized that her days were numbered. And she had to start this difficult conversation. Molly, you're a girl, smart, and almost an adult. So understand me, you may soon be gone, so you may be alone. Grandma, what are you talking about? I'll marry you, and you'll take care of my kids. God willing, girl, but you'd better listen. Here the woman stood up and pointed to a place in the wall, above which stood an unmarred typewriter. Hidden in this wall are the family jewels, the coins, and they were left here by your great-grandfather and great-grandmother, and strictly punished. I'm not to touch them. I only took out an antique ring once and sold it to try to cure your mom. Grandma, why are you telling me this? My little girl, my mommy and daddy told me that this is a treasure to be treasured. It's not just gold. It's magical in a way. You see, Molly, these jewels are our legacy, a gift from the Empress herself. and they'll be used to admit you to the nobility when you grow up. It's like your passport, high society, and you'll be able to take your proper position in society without the miserable existence that the revolution has brought you. Grandma, don't interrupt me. I know what I'm saying, so now I'll get to the most important thing. Do you know where the treasure lies? And when I'm gone, don't tell anyone about it, and don't talk about it now. Do you understand me? Yes, Grandma, but I don't understand. If I die, you have to stay here and keep the treasure. Emily sat back and nodded understandingly, but she really couldn't understand why she was telling her all this, because her beloved grandmother would live for a long time. Though the girl listened attentively and tried to understand everything. Grandma, if I can't cope. This thought had already crossed her mind, and the woman just did not know how to act. She really realized that the girl might not be able to cope with the task, though on the other hand, she couldn't just leave the treasure in the wall and not tell anyone about it either. Vanessa kept thinking about this question when her heart first seized up, and she realized that at her age it might fail. I'm sure you can handle it. After all, one thing you have to realize is that this is your pass to the top, your ticket to better things. If not, you'll have to live not as a princess, but as a working girl. But if you do, you need to rehide them. You agree? She knew her granddaughter's character well. And if you get her interested in something, the girl would do it. And now she hoped that Molly would be able to keep the secret of her family. And in the future, she would be able to proudly declare her family, and I suppose, her status in society. And a clan that would not be forgotten and would not fade into oblivion. Molly smiled and nodded her head. She understood her grandmother perfectly well, loved her. That's why she made a vow about herself. With all her might, she would try to fulfill her errand. But apparently, having freed herself from the mystery that oppressed her, Vanessa had already gone down with high blood pressure by evening. It must be nerves, she thought. I'll take some pills and sleep. And then, God willing, I'll get up early. Although in the morning in the house, there was a grief Vanessa gave up at 0:00, God's soul, leaving on this world little Molly. Getting up in the morning, the girl did not hear the usual footsteps of her grandmother, and the room was cool, and on the table was not her usual simple breakfast of porridge and a glass of milk. Grandma, I'm up, where are you? Molly shouted loudly. But when she stepped out of the partition and into the main part of the room, Vanessa was sitting in a chair near the window, her head tilted to the side, staring at the wall with open eyes. Molly almost shrieked, but clamped her hands over her mouth in time, and she remembered all too well her grandmother's admonition to stay in this house with all her might. But what was she to do? She just didn't know. After all, she was just a little girl who had been left a complete orphan one morning. Molly stood and silently cried, not knowing how to be, what to do. The girl approached her grandmother, began to shake her quietly by the hand, but this did not revive the old Vanessa in any way. From such a stupor, she was brought out of such a stupor by a knock at the door, and knocked neighbor from the next room, loudly calling Vanessa. But Molly did not open the door. If anything, she would say later that her grandmother was at the market. She instantly realized that something had to be done with Grandma's body, but with her tapes, that she could only lower her to the floor, put her under the window, and cover her with a blanket. Molly quickly spun Grandma's body down on the floor, covered her with the blanket, trying to lay her closer to the window with her small hands. She folded her arms and closed her beloved grandmother's eyes and cried involuntarily again. After all, it is difficult to survive such a thing. An adult is not like a child. After that, the girl carefully left the room, closing it on the key. Molly, where is Grandma? The words of the neighbor sounded like thunder. Grandma went to the market, she said quickly, and promptly jumped out of the old barack. Molly raced to the cemetery where her mother was buried, for she simply did not know what she should do next. And now, sitting on an old bench near her mother's grave, the girl cried and complained to her that her grandmother had died, and now she was all alone. Mammy, I just don't know how I can go on living. The grocery cards are enough for a month. Grandma has some money, but she told me to keep our family treasures." The girl cried, and when there was no strength left at all, she quietly slid down to the ground, curled up in a ball, and clasped her knees with her hands and fell asleep. She slept until almost evening, and then she got up and went home quietly. "Molly, where have you been, and where is grandmother?" Insistent neighbors tried to talk to the little girl, but she persistently kept silent. "It's all right. Grandma went to a friend, and I stayed here. Keep an eye on me." "Schoolteacher, you're sure about that?" The neighbor looked at the girl strangely, but she didn't want to get involved. This whole family was weird. "If you need help, you're welcome." The girl nodded her head and quickly headed to her room. She found money and cards for groceries. She started to buy and prepare food herself, but she tried to avoid the body under the blanket. But she realized that she could not go on like this for long, although she did not know how to be. But the neighbors saw the little girl herself going to the market to store, and the once caring Vanessa simply disappeared. And so at the next meeting of neighbors, it was decided to break into the room of old Vanessa and check what happened there. The absence of a neighbor. A strange odor was coming from the room. The child's behavior alarmed everyone who lived in the house and yard. "Vanessa, Molly, open up. It's your neighbors. What's going on?" The girl jumped out of bed, rushed around the room, did not know what to do. If the neighbors suddenly found the corpse of her grandmother, she would be put in an orphanage. And there, according to stories, she would be beaten and starved. But most importantly, she would not be able to keep her grandmother's word and preserve her own legacy. At that moment, the knocking on the door stopped, and a commotion was heard behind them. The girl did not know what was going on, so she tiptoed to the door and listened. Soon Molly heard the voice of their local Uncle Michael. "Vanessa, open up, please." "Molly, girl, can you hear me? I know one of you is definitely home. There's a strange odor coming from under your door." The policeman began to listen, but heard only the stomping of children's feet running from the door. Aha, so the girl is home and most likely alone. Where's Vanessa? It's not like she could leave the little girl for that long. Gotta break down the door. The policeman waved to the locksmith Stepanovich. "We must carefully open the door so as not to damage the lock. Otherwise Vanessa won't get off me later." The locksmith nodded understandingly and began to carefully open the lock. "Which one? What kind of lock is there?" "A flimsy lock, which can be opened with a simple pin." When the locksmith and the neighbor entered the room, the smell of death hit them in the nose, and before their eyes opened a picture on the windowsill. In front of the open window sat crying Molly. "My baby girl. What's wrong?" A kind-hearted neighbor, with whom old Vanessa was more or less friends, rushed to the girl. But when she took the crying child off the windowsill and cast a glance at the body covered with a blanket, she immediately realized everything, shrieked. She immediately pressed the child's head against her shoulder and turned around so that she wouldn't see it. But what was there not to see? It looked like she had been living with this nightmare for almost a month. Here it was already. "Yeah, where had Vanessa gone?" quietly said the precinct officer, who walked over to the body and lifted the bedspread. "No wonder she'd been gone for almost a month. How on earth did you live, baby girl, next to the body?" He looked closely at Molly, whom he had known since birth. Yes, in fact, as well as her late mother and grandmother. And just shook his head. "Call the paramedics and the investigative team. Don't take me to the orphanage, I'll be lost there." Molly's voice sounded especially loud in the silence. "Plushenko, do not worry. You are still. No one is not taking you anywhere. No one. But the girl has to go somewhere. She can't live here by herself." The investigator realized the absurdity of the situation. But what to do? "Why are you clamoring? Let the little girl stay with me for a while." The neighbor, who took the first girl in her arms, immediately made a decision. "Let her live. She has enough space, and money to feed another family is enough. And then look, you can and claim for this room. It will be just right. A place for my son to live if he decides to marry. Are you sure about that, Camille? The policeman knew that the girl would be better off here than in an orphanage. But that's none of his business. Let social services handle it. Yeah, unsure. I work with my son on bread at the factory, so it won't be a problem to feed her. All right, take the little girl in for now, and then we'll decide what to do with her. Decide what? I'll take custody and that's it. What's that orphanage gonna give her? She's just a kid, and she's not very bright. Molly was a smart girl, and she knew she could stay here. That's it. The main thing now is to convince Aunt Nadia to keep her. And let everyone think what they want, but she really need to stay in this room or next door to look after the ordinary treasures. Molly clung tightly to her roommate's neck and cried, nervous overstrain, and the morning situation itself did not have the best effect on her psyche. She quickly picked up the baby and took her to her room, asking her to stay here and she would come back. Molly, I'll be right back. And what's up? And how well the girl wiped her tears and nodded her head. She realized that now her fate was being decided and she had to stay. There was nowhere to go. Camille returned to the old Vanessa's room and caught the moment the body was being carried out of the room. At that minute, a piece and an arm slipped out from under the bedspread. At what she saw, the neighbor cried out, "Aunt Camille, don't leave me." Vi voice running from Molly's room made the woman turn away from what she saw. She hugged her little body tightly and pulled her close to her. "I won't leave you, sweetie. Don't worry." "Why did you leave the room? You promised you'd stay with me." "Can I have my doll?" "It's on the bed." "Molly, wait for the coroner. He'll leave and you can take it." "I don't think so." "Let him take it now. The precinct says." We then print the room, and no one will go in there until the investigator gives the okay. And at the house service, they'll register the room for her. Then the room will be in the girl's name. Camille didn't hide her joy, because she could get custody of her. And then yes, by law, she is the heir to the room, and no one can claim it. The neighbor nodded her head and smiled to herself. Molly had heard all of this as well, happy that she wouldn't be put in an orphanage and could guard the walled treasure. In fact, that's what happened. Investigators determined that the old lady died of a heart attack. The baby was given into the care of a neighbor, who did not hesitate and immediately moved into the room of the cat Vanessa, leaving her son. But Camille was not given to rest. 2 questions: why the girl is so afraid of the orphanage, and whether there was any inheritance left from Vanessa. Though she was a mean old woman, she was the scion of a penniless noble family. "Molly, can you tell me, please? My grandmother had something left, but not towels, but some jewelry and stuff." "No, Grandma had a ring. But when Mom got sick, she sold it, even though the doctor said we couldn't save her in time." "I see," but that answer didn't suit Camille. After all, she realized that only an old woman with a treasure chest could walk around with her head held high like that. But how could she know that? Emily might not even know that. Where does the old woman keep the treasure? I mean, who would tell a child that? God forbid she'd hang around or be dragged out into the light of day. But how wrong was she? One day after this conversation, Camille decided to carefully examine the room, maybe even tread the walls and floor. What if the woman you escorted the girl outside? Let her play. She had no business being out here. She gave her a potato pie and her favorite doll. "Go play outside. I'll take over here." "Okay, Aunt Camille. Why don't I help you?" "No need. What can you do with your little hands?" The girl nodded her head and looked askew at the woman. She certainly didn't like being chased out of her own room. But what could she do at that point? Molly took another pie from the table and swiftly left the room, directing her life in the direction of the old cemetery to her mother's grave. She wanted to feed her mother's soul, to grieve as her grandmother had grieved, communing with Evelyn's portrait. Well, that was nice. Apparently ran to the cemetery to see her deadbeat mom, Camille said, looking out the window where the girl had gone. She was really getting fed up. She's been eating out of her mind. There's no work for her. Just spend food on her, dress her with cards. But on the other hand, how will she get this room? She's just looking after this one. And then she'll think of something, marry her son and get married herself. And this one to an orphanage or something. Camille moved away from the window and looked around the room with her eyes. Where could the old rich woman keep her treasures? That Vanessa had gotten something from her, she knew for sure. After all, it could not be that the descendants of a noble family had not brought at least a handful of coins with them in the Revolution. But judging by the condition of the walls, it was impossible to make a hiding place in them. That left only the underground, and Camille began to knot her heel. The floor. But a thud indicated that there were no voids or niches there either. Oh, what the hell. Did you, Vanessa? That's the only ring I had. And I gave it to a dead man. And she even left that one herself. The woman with vexation then hit the floor with her foot, and so hard that a squirrel sprinkled from the wall of the stove. She didn't know where and how to look for the treasure, but she realized that they were here. Vanessa put locks on the doors for a reason, right? Yes, she also wanted to put bars on the windows. Then the neighbors still began to laugh at her. That say, you promised a noblewoman to steal from you. Though everyone for a minute wondered whether the woman was not for nothing, guarding her room like that. Well, we should invite an apprentice. Let him check the stove too. Maybe he'll find something inside. Just who to invite? The woman realized that if you call from the outside and in the oven or chimney, really something will be, then certainly such a treasure will not be able to hide. You'd have to share it or give it to the state. I'll have to think about it. And the woman left the room, closing it with 2 turns of the key. Nice German lock. These foreigners know how to make them. They're flimsy, you can pick them with a knife and just open them. In these minutes, Molly reached the grave of her mother, next to which her grandmother was buried. The girl divided the pie in half and put each one on the grave. She sat down on the bench where her grandmother had sat earlier and began to communicate with her relatives. Mom, Grandma, I feel bad without you. True, Aunt Camille. She's nice, but Grandma, I remember your instruction and keep it safe. I don't tell anyone about the treasure, but I think my aunt guesses. Is that you, Grandma? Come to my house in a dream. What should I do? What to do? And the girl wiped the tears that mercilessly hailed from her eyes. She was a little girl on whom the adults laid an impossible labor and task, and there was no one to consult with. Molly had friends, and even friends from among the yard boys who protected her from her elders. Always treated her to apples. But that wasn't it. She simply had no one to talk to. And tormenting her soul with all her doubts. Okay, Mom, Grandma, I love you, but I'm going. I think Aunt Camille will be looking for the treasure hidden in the wall of the stove, so I don't have to leave the room for too long. And you'll pardon me if I don't come long, but I'll come and get you some food. And Molly got up and walked briskly home. But in her smallness and inexperience, the girl did not turn around and look at the place when she spoke of the treasure hidden in the wall of the stove, and her words were heard by ears to which the information itself was in no way intended, and a dark figure stepped quietly away from the thick bush and weaved its way down the old path. In this gatehouse, which had formerly belonged to the cemetery keeper, had taken up residence with Michael, an old front man. Michael had come from the front a long time ago and wanted to find his first and probably only love, but couldn't. He was told that Wendy had been resting in the graveyard for a long time. They even pointed out the grave. Since then, the man has been living in the gatehouse. He's been living here for 6 months now. He looks after the old graves sometimes, and he's waiting to see who's going to visit his Wendy's grave. Probably 3 months ago, the man noticed a poppy seed cake on Wendy's grave, just the way the woman liked it. Strange, who could have brought it to him? Good people told him Wendy's mother was still alive. Yeah, I think she is. She's got a little girl, a little girl, a little girl. And the timeline fits. Could it be his blood? But he was afraid to admit to himself that a lone wolf like that had a child. No, we have to look. Maybe it's not my baby. But the moment Molly came to the grave, all doubts simply fell away. The girl 1 in 1 was his copy of the same as his hair, almost red color, eyes and nose with a small hump. And the voice. No, it was exactly like his. But what treasure was the child talking about? It's weird. Did Wendy have untold treasures, and now they're all left to the girls? And who is this auntie? Camille. My God, is everyone after these cats? And nobody cares about the kid. She just walks from here to the other side of town like that. Where to? The old cemetery. No, we should definitely go back to Wendy's house and see what's going on. Apparently, the girl is Wendy and his daughter. And left alone, she's simply in trouble. But what about the treasure? He threw the cigarette butt under his feet and crushed it with his boot. He began to think about what to do. Should he go today or tomorrow? No, there's no need to be so hot. Reconnaissance. I'll go tomorrow morning. I'll look and ask. And then already. The man went back to the old lady and took his suitcase out from under the bed. He looked at the unpretentious stuff he brought from the war and his award-winning nagant. You didn't get much in Berlin intelligence. At least you could have nibbled one German. It's all right with him. You're not a thief. You're an intelligence captain. You shouldn't be in this line of work. And the man took civilian pants out of his suitcase and threw them on a nail by the door. Tomorrow, I'll have something to change into. There was nothing to show off the uniform. Already rare visitors of the Pogost began to pay attention to him. They might call the local police. Let them call him. He wasn't doing anything illegal. He stayed here because he had nowhere else to stay. His house was bombed, and the local military commission wouldn't listen. They said, "You're not from here. You're not entitled to housing. Not even a corner. Go to your place." But the man, being a native of Siberia, came here on purpose to find his niche after so many years. He remembered her as a young and happy carcass with whom fate had brought him together at the train station and with whom he had spent only one night. The man's heart snapped because he was so afraid that she would not wait for him, would marry someone else, although everything turned out to be more prosaic and tragic. From the train station, the man rushed to Wendy's house, where he was simply put on notice. She died of a cold. Buried at this and that. And there's a mother and her daughter living in the apartment. Was she married? Did his heart race? No, she never was. She gave birth to a daughter by some soldier. That's all. A soldier. So she traded him for a soldier. What? Apparently, the love there was stronger, so to speak, until the grave. And the girl, but when she saw Molly's graves in the cemetery near Nancy, the man realized how wrong he was. This is the little girl of his blood, and he will try to do everything to adopt her, and then take her to his native village, to show his mother and prove to everyone that he is not an empty color and not an empty voice. In the village, Michael had long been notorious for not marrying, because he was not strong as a man, nor can he have children, though on the other hand, none of his battle girlfriends complained about his strength, and the fact that he couldn't have children, it came out by itself without consequences. And now he would prove to everyone that he had a daughter and was a copy of her father. The man smiled, and his soul became warmer from such thoughts. He lay down on the old bed near the stove and, throwing his hands behind his head, began to think, if Molly is his daughter, if she knows where the treasure is, then you can not only come home with an heiress, but also a rich man. Michael had heard many stories that the nobility after the revolution had managed to sneak away some of their wealth, and some even hid it so securely that there are still untold treasures lying in many caches. Come on, that's not the point, but it's for your education, my little girl. He lay there thinking about how he'd come home, how he'd show that little girl to everyone. He would build a house of solid logs, bring his parents there, and then give his daughter to the City Institute. Michael didn't even notice how he was hovering in the clouds. He fell asleep, but the dream itself was restless. He suddenly had a vision of Evelyn in his vision. She had never come to him in his dreams before. And now here was Michael. "Save our child, save our child." She waved at him and then disappeared. The man woke up in a cold sweat. himself not realizing what it was. His heart was pounding frantically on his forehead, large drops of sweat were oozing, and his breathing was cut short. Jesus, what a dream. He looked out of the window. It was already getting dark outside, so he had slept a long time. 6 or 7 hours. That's okay. The body itself knows perfectly well how much to rest, how much to sleep and eat and drink water. Although it's worth getting up, making tea and heating the stove. Summer is warm during the day, but the nights can still be damp and cool. Michael got out of bed and put his feet into his Kurzovy boots, went outside, looked around and took some large logs from the fields. He looked up at the sky and remembered his Evelyn, how he had missed her all those years during the war. And then when he returned to civilian life and started looking for his family. But everything will be fine now. He knows that. Warming a small stove, Michael put a kettle on the stove, threw a handful of automaton herbs in it. Thanks, Grandma, for teaching me. I won't forget you. I hope you'll help me bring my daughter back to her father's house. Having drunk the tea, Michael went to the doorstep and sat down. He took out tobacco and paper, rolled a wet duck, took a drag, and for a mushy plum. He looked at the duck and threw it on the ground. What an infestation! It had eaten through all the lungs. We must throw it. If there's a child in the house, you'll throw it yourself too. What child are you talking about? Honey. Michael jumped from surprise and turned around and looked at the real woman in front of him. Who are you? Don't be afraid, I'm Camille. He's just been going to the cemetery. My pupil girl is so light, and Molly has not seen. Camille didn't go to the cemetery for nothing. She looked all over old Vanessa's room, but she couldn't find any hiding place. Then it occurred to her that the treasure might be hidden in the cemetery, buried in Evelyn's grave, for instance. Not for nothing the old cargo from there often showed, not thinking long to feed Molly Koi-sun. Woman, she threw her handkerchief and sweater and went to the old cemetery. What if? But as she walked, Camille realized that it was unrealistic to find treasure there. It's not an old crypt, not some funeral structure, but a grave. But it's true, she wouldn't dig up and bury the treasure every time. But she's already gone. It was worth checking out. Camille walked through the cemetery and decided to look in the old cemetery path. And lo and behold, sitting on the doorstep was a military man, smoking himself, the meek, and talking about the baby. Talking. Camille realized that Michael had come here from the front to look for his family, Evelyn and his daughter. What kind of Evelyn are you looking for? Not the one buried next to Grandma Vanessa. Oh yeah. Michael stood up in surprise. He'd found someone who could tell his daughter about Evelyn and her life. So, who were you to her? Wasn't she Molly's father? Well, don't spoil it for her. I've taken custody of Evelyn's daughter. Her paperwork's all in order. But I wanted to check with Evelyn about the father. But she's dead, I guess. I saw the girl here at her mother's grave, and I understand her grandmother is buried here. Yeah, the little girl comes here a lot. When Vanessa was alive, she used to take her to the grave, and then she left after her daughter. I can talk to her, but that girl is Molly. If that's my daughter, I'll take her. Don't worry. I'm not gonna leave you alone. And if you want, I'll leave you Evelyn's room too. Believe me. Is it true? You'll take the girl. You're gonna leave me the room. As the baby's father, Camille grinned at the man and had already lost her hands. This was the solution to her many problems. She gets rid of an unnecessary burden in her face. Defke gets that coveted square footage. Yes, plus if the treasure is left in the room, Camille can easily search it from floor to ceiling, up to the point that the floors will tear to the concrete. The man himself saw the advantage of making a deal with Camille. She would know exactly who the baby's father was. Yes, if he could interest her with a ringing message, the aunt would have no problem giving him custody of the girl. Paternal custody. And you don't worry, if you help me, if you don't force me to give her rights, I'll leave her without even saying a word. Camille looked at him askance. He's not an alcoholic or a fool. He's a good-looking man. He wouldn't cheat. She did a quick calculation, all the odds, and nodded. So be it. The wool of the lousy sheep. Good, then let the girl stay with me for a while, and you get the paperwork together. What else do you need at social services? And by the way, you can't bring a house in town on your own. It's her cemetery here. Okay. Camille turned around and was to the exit from the Pogost, but stopping, turned back and spoke. I stopped by the other day. She did not visit the grave of Evelyn and old Vanessa. No need to show this strange occupant of the Pogost for now. Where could the treasure be hiding? And Michael's already forgotten about the treasure. I'm glad his suspicions have been confirmed, so he can take the little girl away unhindered. Hell, yeah. What about the treasure? He didn't even think of that. And this is Camille going on the attack. I don't know if she knows where it is. That's why she's keeping the baby for now. It's weird. But if the woman knows there's treasure in the room, and the girl knows exactly where it is, Molly's in danger. What do we do? Just walk in on your daughter and say, "Hi, baby girl, I'm your daddy. Let's pack up the treasure and go before I'm either taken to the Neuf house or put in the penitentiary." No, you don't want to just do this out of the blue. We need to think this through. We need to do some recon. And then, the man sat down on the bench and began to think. He realized he shouldn't scare the little girl like that. And to begin with, it is necessary to get acquainted with her, but that would be tomorrow, and tonight to sleep. The man entered the house, and having closed the door on a bolt, lay down on a bench, covered with a warm overcoat. He slept that night, Michael restlessly. And no wonder. So much to experience, so much new information and discoveries. It's no wonder that sleep fell from his feet. The man dreamt of Nadia, strangely enough, pregnant little Molly. And the strangest thing was the old Vanessa, who he had never seen in person. Only on the cell phone picture, Vanessa was standing in the middle of the room in his dream, and he was pointing his finger at the sand latch. But what was strange was that he was asleep, and he could smell the smell of burning. No, it wasn't his, not the cinders in his dream. Michael jumped impetuously out of bed, and out of military habit, slipped his feet into his boots behind his eyes. There were puffs of smoke in the room, and the roof was crackling with tongues of flame that were just breaking out. How in time had he managed to wake up? Apparently, someone had either gotten under the roof or the roof itself caught fire from some unknown cause. He grabbed his field bag and sprinted outside before he fully realized what had happened. But Michael didn't see Camille looking at him from behind the bushes, who decided to check out the soldier who lived in the cemetery. She threw a torch on the roof and quickly hid behind the thick bushes, and from there she watched what this strange soldier, who had come from nowhere and intended to take her girl, would do. Yes, he wanted the girl, she believed. He wants the treasure. He's not gonna give me a room unless he canvasses. They've all been rented out. We've seen the likes of them. After the front, they come in, spin around, and then things, chickens and food disappear. Let him spin. He jumped out with his duffel bag. But you forgot your suitcase, so you're not as simple as you turn out to be, my good man. The woman saw the man wiping his eyes and coughing, and then the helper walked toward town. That's what you should do. In the meantime, I'll search Evelyn's grave for treasure, but there was no treasure, though the woman searched very carefully. Meanwhile, Michael threw his bag over his shoulders and walked toward town. Come on, with this road burned, so it would only speed up his relocation to the city. But where to go? Maybe straight to his daughter's house. He thought and headed for the place where Evelyn used to live, and he was not mistaken in his choice. When Michael approached the house, he stopped and looked around at the grandmothers on the benches, children in the sandbox. Everything as it should be in peaceful life. Patsana in the forehead, then play. It's nice. It's like there was no war, no grief and human suffering. And here's Molly with her doll playing alone without her friends. What can I say? Maybe there are no girls here. Maybe that's a good thing. So I'll meet my daughter without witnesses. And then how will the conversation go? Maybe she won't recognize her father, won't want to know or see him. Michael carefully approached the girl and quietly said, "Molly, it's you." Molly jerked at the voice of a strange man and looked at him carefully from under her forehead with her smart gray eyes. "Yes, my eyes are my blood," Michael thought and smiled. There are dimples in her cheeks, just like his narrow lips, a stern look, and eyebrows arched like Evelyn's. "Why did Aunt Camille send you?" "No, Molly, I wanted to talk to you. You realize I'm your daddy. My name is Michael. Your mom and I didn't know each other long, but then you were born. You're my daughter, you know." Molly sat on the curb and couldn't say anything. She understood what this strange man was saying, but she just couldn't believe it. After all, Grandma had always said she had no one. And if Grandma died, she'd be put in an orphanage. "I don't believe you," the girl shouted across the courtyard. Everyone heard her. And now already playing noodles, guys, and sitting on the bench, old ladies began to look closely at the strange man. Some of them even stood up and walked over. Little wonder what kind of souvenir wants to offend a child so easily. "Man, who are you? Why are you bothering our Molly?" The woman's voice was harsh. She was a species woman, and even at her age, she could easily hit anyone with a stick without looking at their strength. She looked at the man and realized she'd seen him somewhere before. "You're not the man who went to Molly's mother's house 9 or 10 years ago." "Yeah, that's me. It's just, I'm Molly's father, and I've only just managed to get here. I was wounded after the front, hospitalized, then rehab. I just recently found out I had a daughter. So I decided to come here, to come and take her with me." "Where were you when Evelyn was dying? When Vanessa was pulling a baby girl on her own bloodline? When Sophia died, the only one left, and the neighbor nodded her head at the baby girl sitting at their feet like an abandoned puppy. "Yes, you understand. I only just now found out she existed, that I had a daughter. Not to mention the fact that there's grief here. I'm ready to make amends. You think that's the only place a penal battalion buys their guilt? No, I'm a captain, reconnaissance, so please be respectful. And yes, I am Molly's father, and I want to take her. And don't be afraid to take her room for yourself." Camille's voice sounded sudden, loud, and overpowered all the voices of the yard captives. "I'm the girl's legal guardian, and I won't let you take her. Come on, Camille. Weren't you the one who told me yesterday at the cemetery that you were ready to give the girl and her dependents to her legal father? But I have to give you Molly's room." Or was that not the case? The woman pressed her lips together quickly, not knowing what to say to that statement. After all, the fact that she had gone to the old cemetery had been seen by many. To deny it was to invite even more suspicion. "Yes, I did. But then I thought about it and decided. What if you're some kind of crook and you want the girl? For some obscure business. How can you prove you're her father? The baby's birth certificate only lists the potential father's name. I can see the birth certificate. Are you really my father?" Molly's voice sounded low, quiet, but everyone heard her question. "Yes, Molly, are you my daughter? Mommy probably said you don't have a father, but here I am. You look at me and yourself in the mirror. How do we look alike? By the way, she's from before the breakup. Well, your mom gave me this antique and magical pen mirror." And Michael pulled an antique mirror out of a duffel bag. It had a long stem made of golden metal. It glistened in the sunlight, casting bunny glints all over it. "Wow, that's right. Real gold," Camille thought to herself, and stared at the antique. "Must be worth a lot of money, huh? That bitch Vanessa. She said she had no money, and here she was giving away such things left and right." The mirror itself was made of real gold, and Evelyn gave it to Michael as a keepsake. Let there be something left of their inheritance. At that moment, the woman did not believe that they would be able to keep the wealth. The time was too hard and hungry. Although Michael carried it with him all through the war and in the post-war years without breaking or scratching it, now he showed it to his daughter. "It's really my mom's mirror. My grandmother told me about it, although she always scolded my mother for giving the mirror without her permission. Well, it's true. You're a daddy. And the girl threw herself around Michael's neck, hugged him, and began kissing his stubble and floor and cheeks. The man simply could not restrain himself and also kissed and stroked his daughter's head, pouring tears, which did not shed for all the years of war. And what to hold back his emotions now? They had found each other and everything would be fine. Daddy, you won't put me in an orphanage for anything. We'll stay at your grandmother's and Mom's room for now. And then, citizen, show me your papers. The policeman was called by the neighbors. Not many people believed that Molly had found her father, or rather he had found her. It all looked too suspiciously good. Michael put his daughter on the ground and took the duffel bag off his shoulder. At the same time, he noticed with the corner of his eye how the policeman's hand twitched and reached for his gun. Yes, of course, the sergeant was in no hurry to pull out his gun. I'm from intelligence. Here are my passport and military ID. And he handed the documents to the policeman, who began to scrutinize them, checking the photo and the man's face. Yes, it looks like he really is a scout. Although, on the one hand, after the war, there is no telling what kind of scum is coming into the city. But the policeman couldn't find anything to pick on the documents, and he asked what business he was in town on. Yes, you see, I was looking for my family, but I found only my daughter. So, citizen, let's go to the nearest police station. There we'll check your documents and the authenticity of your words. Maybe it's not your daughter at all, and you want to hurt her. But then Molly jumped into her father's arms and screamed, I'm not letting him go anywhere. He's my daddy. I don't have anyone else. I don't want to go to an orphanage. Don't listen to that girl. She's been living with her dead grandmother for a month. She must be out of her mind. When Camille said those words, Michael almost fainted. How could it be? A small child and lived next to a corpse for a month. It just didn't make sense. What the hell are you doing? Inhumans, how could you let this little baby live next to a dead man? Even the Germans couldn't do that. Michael just didn't understand how it could happen that he picked up the little girl in his arms like that and looked at the policeman, nodding his head. Come on, brother. Take us to your nearest station. We'll find a solution for these good neighbors. The policeman himself stood white as chalk from what he had heard. After all, even having been through the war, he could not imagine that in peacetime such a thing was possible. He nodded his head and led the father and daughter to the station. The girl put her arms around her father's neck and quietly moaned in his ear. Daddy, you really won't leave me. No, of course not, my dear child. I won't leave you. We'll live happily ever after in my new home. But don't tell anyone about the policy yet. There's a hidden treasure in my room with my mom and grandma. I'll tell you later. Okay, but don't tell anyone else about it yet. That's what my grandmother told me. It's my pass to a better life. It's okay, daughter, it's gonna be okay. Just don't worry. Already in the station, Michael and little Molly were given tea and porridge from the soldiers' canteen and sent to the office of the investigator, who was in charge of the case of the death of the grandmother of the girl's old Vanessa. Well, tell me, Molly, who's that with you? That's my dad. He's going to take me and Nadia away from the orphanage. That's good. But tell me, did Aunt Camille ever hurt you? Yes, she said all sorts of mean things about my mom and grandma. Then she threatened me that she would give me to the orphanage. That's what she said. The investigator was surprised by the girl's words. Camille seemed really kind and friendly. And now this. Yes, she thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. I was lying quietly under the blanket, and I heard everything. Aunt Camille said she was going to put me in an orphanage. Let them starve me there, because I'm bursting. And then I froze to death from the cold there in winter. But I have a daddy now, and I'll go with him. And where does your daddy intend to take the baby? I hope you have your own place. The investigator realized how serious and responsible this decision was. Don't worry, comrade investigator. I'm from Siberia myself. I have my parents' house. I'll come back with my daughter and build a log cabin. But you understand, while I have to draw up the documents for my daughter, so that I could get the appropriate certificate and write it in my passport, I may live where her mother and grandmother lived. It's on Severny 32. The investigator looked in the records of the deceased Vanessa. Yes, Uncle Investigator, Molly said quietly. Mom and Grandma lived there with me. Let Daddy live there. The investigator spread his hands. After all, there were no grounds for refusal. He nodded his head and made appropriate notes in the file. He turned to Michael. Let's do it this way. I'll take you home my car now. I'll get you in. We'll make sure everything's all right. You understand, Camille had custody of the girl as a neighbor, and she was already counting on getting this room. Don't worry, comrade investigator. I'll keep the room. Let her live and be happy. She has children of her own, and I don't need it. The only thing is, I ask you to let me sleep there a couple of nights. You know, I'll get everything in order, and then I'll go home. All right, then let's go. The explorer put on his cap and waved his hand at Michael, saying, Come with me. Half an hour later, Michael and Molly sat on the bed and heard Camille shouting indignantly. The woman, of course, was not too pleased that a stranger had thrown her out of the room with his presence and taken the girl away. And these are some kind of government benefits. And ration cards. Yes, how can you give him a child? Look at his face. Siberian. He's more like a convict on the run. Do you realize what kind of hands you're putting your child in? Aunt Camille, didn't you say you'd put me in an orphanage? How will you get this room? Everyone in the room fell silent. No one expected that a little girl who had experienced grief would just like that and say in the eyes of adult aunts something that not every man or grown woman can say. What do you know, you little brat? Do you know how much everything costs at the store? Do you know how much it costs to dress you? You didn't want Grandma and Mommy's room. You wanted the jewelry of our noble family. Tears spurted from the girl's eyes. She said all this in 1 minute because the very mystery of family treasures tormented her. And the grief she had experienced, the death of her mother, her grandmother, whose body she had lived with for almost a month. Camille's words about the orphanage did not have the best effect on the little girl's psyche. Little Molly sat and sobbed. She was trembling, and after a few minutes she simply fainted. Go. Call an ambulance. There's a phone booth behind the house. He gave the order loud and clear. The investigator realized how critical the situation could be. A few minutes later, neighbors and medics were already bustling around the house, carrying the baby in their arms and putting her in the ambulance. And Michael himself was not happy that he had stopped here, having started a quarrel with his neighbor. To hell with them, with the treasure, which in principle may not exist. Yes, the fairy tales of Irina's grandmother. Michael said quietly, sitting in the ambulance and holding the baby in his arms. They were taken to the first city hospital, which was the closest. After examining the child, the old doctor stated that she was emaciated. You understand, the girl's exhaustion is total moral and physical. No wonder your fellow policeman told me her story in brief, so I suggest you keep her here for a few days. We'll keep an eye on her, feed her, you bet. We'll examine her, and then we'll see. Thank you, doctor. But I'm not a colleague of the investigator. I'm just the girl's father. But in some ways we're similar. He's a policeman, I'm a scout. So in a way we are colleagues, and we work in different directions. Michael smiled. He was pleased with this doctor. It was obvious that the man was a professional in his place, so he could safely leave the girl here and go home, rest and eat. At the mention of food, Michael's stomach sounded treacherous, but he realized that now he would have to try to arrange his life for himself and his daughter. Are you hungry? The doctor asked and looked carefully at Michael and Molly. The girl looked carefully at her father, then at the doctor and nodded. She could hear her father's stomach churning and understood him perfectly. After all, she knew what hunger and cold were like. Loneliness. Even at her age as a little girl, Molly already understood what some adults didn't. She looked at the doctor and quietly asked if Daddy could eat with us. He's so hungry. And everyone laughed. Of course we can. Honey, come on, Michael. We're having porridge and meat today. I don't think you've had it in a long time. Already at home in Evelyn's room. Michael looked around carefully, set the duffel bag on the floor by the door. Front line have it. Yes, Evelyn, you left me a daughter and a lot of mysteries. I wonder if what Molly said is true, if there is treasure bricked up in the wall of this stove. He looked at the wall of the stove and figured out where the cache might be buried. Michael began to methodically and almost centimeter by centimeter simply knotting the masonry. The sounds were muffled, indicating that the masonry was intact and there was no void inside. The man was almost desperate to find what Molly was talking about. He waved his hand, but his military training did not give him the right to retreat. Okay, only a couple of turns left to go himself, Michael said, and set up a stool to reach the very ceiling. And indeed, the very masonry of the kiln brick walls went almost to the ceiling. Almost reaching the outermost corner, Michael knocked a couple of times on one brick and immediately heard the familiar muffled sound of a void in the masonry. Cannot be. Could there really be treasure here? But here was a strange sighting of a squirrel, untouched but scurried around a few times. Has this treasure been untouched for years? Michael stood on the stool and wondered what he should do. Should he break the masonry now and open the hiding place? But if there is nothing there, at least he will check this version and Molly's words about the hidden treasure in the wall stove, and will be able to quietly leave this room, filled with death, the city itself, and go to his homeland. So we should take a wooden hammer, swing it 3 pizzas, and all proceed to dismantle the masonry. But that's tomorrow. Michael carefully got off the stool and put it back in its place. He took a quick bite of something he bought on the way to the market and went to bed. He lay on the bed and thought about Evelyn sleeping here, or maybe her mother Vanessa could often sleep under Molly's side. How homey and warm and cozy was this? I guess that's how it should be in every family, where everyone loves and cares for each other. Tonight, Michael, strangely enough, dreamt of Evelyn. She was standing on the hillside and looking at him. The man smiled and tried to get closer to her. But as he approached, the figure of the once beloved woman melted and vanished into thin air like a ghost. He woke up almost at 5 o'clock, all in tears, not realizing himself why he was sobbing like a child. Evelyn, how much do I miss you in this life? Wiping tears with the sleeve of his shirt, Michael lowered his feet off the bed and tried to fumble for the slippers he found in the house yesterday. Strange. He remembered them standing right there in front of the bed. And now, after looking at them, Michael intuitively sensed something wrong. Yep, here are the slippers. But for some strange reason, they were in their usual place by the door. That's odd. Maybe I went barefoot and simply did not remember it. The man rubbed his eyes with his hands and waved his head, chasing the dream away. But if he had been barefoot, he would have remembered it, because the times when he drank ungodly were long gone. So he couldn't write it all off to vodka. Yesterday he hadn't even had a drop in his mouth. All right, the man thought to himself, and slipped his feet into his slippers as he walked barefoot to the threshold. Time for breakfast and run to the hospital to Molly. On the way, stop by the market and buy some milk. Later, an hour later, Michael, with a bag of apples and a liter bottle of milk, stood outside the hospital. The man looked up to the second floor where his daughter's room was, and oh happiness. The little girl was sitting on the windowsill, looking out for him, probably since the morning. Hi, sweetie. I'll be right up to see you. Michael waved to the girl. Hi. I've been waiting for you all morning. A few minutes later, Michael entered the room and hugged his daughter, breathing in her baby scent. I'm glad he has her. It's so good that he came here and found his daughter. Now he has a family, and he's not alone. You've been fed. Daughter, they gave us delicious pancakes. That's good. I brought you some apples and milk. You should drink milk. It's calcium. So let's have it while it's warm. Michael took out a bottle, and poured thick and still warm milk into his daughter's cup, which the girl drank with pleasure in a minute. She set her cup down for him, and with a smile on her face asked her daddy, "Can I still need a girl? Mine needs one." And Michael gladly poured another portion into his daughter's glass, watching her drink with appetite. He watched and realized that he would do anything for his daughter. He realized that for his daughter's sake, he would sell his soul to make sure Molly grew up well off and never denied herself anything. He looked at her and stroked her head, delighted with her smile, the sparkle in her eyes, and the fact that at least now he could make up for lost time. "Thank you. It's popular to have such delicious milk. All right, Molly, you go ahead and get some rest. Build up your strength. Don't worry. And I'll go to all the authorities and get the paperwork done." Your daughter looked at Michael and grabbed his hand, afraid that he would leave and never come back. "Don't worry, my daughter is back and we will be together. You'll never go to the orphanage. Do you remember?" The girl wanted to remind her father about the treasure in the wall, but was afraid that she might be heard. But the father realized what was bothering his daughter and cautioned. He also put his finger to his lips. "I remember everything. You don't have to worry, sweetheart. Today I will go to social services and passport office, and in the evening I will stop by and bring you ice cream. Do you like ice cream?" Her daughter nodded happily and pulled her arms toward her father. Michael happily picked her up and kissed her and returned her to the bed. He had to go through the instances first and then sort out the personal clutch. Little wonder how much time he and his daughter had left. What if they could leave as early as tomorrow? And the neighbor Camille and her attention to square meters did not give rest. By lunchtime, Michael had already bypassed all the authorities and quickly formalized all the documents for his daughter. And in this helped not only his combat experience and the grip of a scout, but also tears and promises of promises. You can't do much to get your child back. Yeah, Michael thought. He'd never felt such happiness before. Good afternoon, Michael. How's Molly? Camille's voice, suddenly coming from around the corner, brought the man back to earth. Well, if you're interested in her condition, and not in square meters, I can show you what room she's in. It's of interest to you. You took such good care of her. The woman pressed her lips together and said nothing, rapidly pushed into the entryway, tapping her heels on the wooden floor. Yeah, you can't say anything. I'm surprised the kids didn't take after their mother. They seem like nice kids. All right, I'll just wish her luck in her quest and valiant endeavors. Totally. Sama meekly walked into the entryway and went to her room. He had to sort out his documents, cook something tasty for his daughter, and visit her in the hospital. And in the evening, the man stood in the kitchen at the stove and thought how to quietly and discreetly dismantle the walls. After all, if you start banging in the evening, it will certainly attract the attention of neighbors. And if you do it right now, knock on the table first as if repairing it. And then already, Michael, good afternoon. You can't help me. Klitschko's voice called him out of his thoughts. Yes, Jenna, anything I can do to help. Jenna was a local Mali theater prima donna, performing at street concerts with numbers, singing, sometimes showing tricks. Michael looked at her and understood that Jenna was a person from the category of theatrical bohemia, and such concepts as hammering a nail into a wall or fixing a Primus something incredible. Michael, you realize I have a wobbly chair and I need to fix it. You can help me. No problem. Jenna, I can fix it. I'll just get my lunch ready and then I'll get started. Do you mind? The girl smiled sweetly and, looking at Michael, asked quietly how Molly was doing. If necessary, I can get medicine, groceries. You do not think anything bad. My fans are more than willing to help. Thank you, Jenna. Nothing yet, but I'll keep that in mind. I'll definitely come to your place sometime. She nodded and went to her room with light steps. It's not weighty. Within 15 minutes, there was already a cooked lunch on the table in the room. And in front of him was the very chair that should have been repaired. Inspecting the unpretentious piece of furniture, the man realized that simply rock the nuts which were terminated legs to the seat. But it was necessary to create the appearance of work and noise. So he frantically began to bang on the table. You can't think of anything for fun. It's a lot of fun, though. Maybe there really are jewels hidden in there. It will help him not only to help his daughter, but also to build the log cabin he's been dreaming of for a long time. Then he'll buy some animals and give his daughter enough milk to drink. So we've made a little noise. Now we can start the new wall. The man carefully took a stool and put it under the wall. Started just knotting the upper rows of masonry. Here it is the place where the wooden hammer wrapped around and into the rag. Made a thud. That's where the flower, scarlet, and Michael began to break the wall with clear blows, trying not to make noise. The brick was already old. Time is not sparing anyone, and it was not taken from this masonry, so it gave in easily. In the resulting hole, the man carefully squeezed his hand, and inside the niche felt the end. Yes, you can't pull out such a thing, but maybe it will be possible to open it and just pull out all the stuffing from there. Fumbling for the lock, which was surprisingly simple for a slit, Michael pressed it, and the mechanism easily threw the lid off. It couldn't be that simple, but immediately the man put his hand inside the chest and felt the cold metal. Well, there you have it, noble jewelry. Now Molly and I are going to make a life. And he stretched out a handful of chains and rings of clones. It all glittered with yellow metal and blinded the eyes with bright shimmers of precious stones. It was mesmerizing. Sure, he'd heard of all sorts of enchanted treasures, jewels enriched with blood. But this was really mesmerizing. Michael, you're all right. A knock on the door and a ringing voice brought him out of his stupor. Yes, Jenna, I'm sorry. I can't get it open. Hands in the grease greasing the screws on your desk so it won't snap. Oh, thank you. But I'll come back later. Come on in. An hour later, the man stood like a statue on a stool and listened to the steps of the theater prima donna, praying to himself that someone else did not come and knocked on his door. But there came the long-awaited silence in the hallway. Michael carefully got off the chair, quickly found a small bag, and poured jewelry into it. Nothing now, the rest of the gold here. And bricked up the wall quickly. Nothing for the neighbors to ask stupid questions later. Why the wall is broken in this place and all that. Michael quickly climbed on a stool and put his hand inside the chest again and started to pull out the rest of the treasure. There would be money to put his house on. The last thing Michael fumbled for. There was a large diamond that shone with the purest countenance in the sunlight. Just like a diamond from a royal crown, you can't show it to anyone. Let Emily grow up and decide what to do with it. Michael quickly hid the diamond in a bag, where already called knotted gold jewelry, got off the stool, and began to think where to hide it. But, as luck would have it, nothing came to mind, and time was running out. It was necessary not only to keep the treasure safely, but also to fix the hole in the wall. Aha! I guess I'll just hide the treasure in Molly's toy bear for now. I'll hide it later. Now we need to fix the wall and give this actress her chair. Quickly completing the task, Michael was just about to pick up the repaired table, just as there was another knock on the door. Michael, it's Jenna. I'm at my desk. The man opened the door with a smile on his face and placed a piece of furniture in front of her. You're in, my queen. Please test your chair to make sure it's sturdy and creak-free. And he theatrically invited the woman to sit down. She eagerly responded and sat down on the chair. Michael, giving the master chair, not only does not squeak, but stands firmly on his feet. How can I ever thank you? Jenna rolled her eyes theatrically and looked languidly at Michael. She realized at once that this man was not only handsome, but also with golden hands. And now in such a difficult time to find a good man in the house is difficult. And the fact that he has a child in his arms, so nothing. It's a good thing. You won't have to get pregnant and spoil your figure. I've got it all. I'll have chicken broth for tomorrow, please. I got some homemade chicken for the occasion. I can share half of it with you. Oh, Michael, you're not only responsible, but you're also responsible. That's fine. But then you'll have to come over for lunch, because I'll need to get some broth for Molly as well as myself. How's the poor girl? She's fine. She's not poor. I'm almost done with the paperwork. And then the man bit his tongue. What's he talking about? The old fool. God forbid. Now there will be unnecessary questions about what and how. He quickly said goodbye to Jenna and just put her out with a chair in the hallway, apologizing like a first grader. Jenna, excuse me, I have to change and go to my daughter's hospital. Having closed the door on a lock, the man quickly looked around the room, threw a glance at the masonry plastered in the wall, and thought that it was worth it, probably, to break the whole wall to make this place stand out. Quickly prepare the solution. Michael whitened the stove and opened the windows. Let ventilate the eggs, and only at that moment he saw Camille watching his windows. Camille, good afternoon. Would you like to come with me to see Molly at the hospital? I'm just about to go. The woman felt a twinge at the words. She'd heard Jenna come to see Michael, asking him to fix a chair, banging on a hammer, and then flirting with that theatrical puppet. Is her room being claimed by this Fifa? No. But when Michael defeated the sad wall and opened the window to see her watching him, Camille was frightened. She's going to get suspicious if she doesn't want to get out of the room. And she had every right to. Next time, I'm in a hurry. I'll bring you guys a delivery for Molly tonight, and I'll do some recon. What did you do in the room? Is everything in place? Sure, come and have tea on the floor and we'll talk. Tea for you. What about wasting sugar on her? I will. You didn't even give the little girl a handful of candy yourself, and everyone's looking. Everybody's looking for something. Maybe she knows about the treasure too. Then I can see why she's holding on to that square footage. Probably guesses that Vanessa might have kept jewelry in the room. But I'm ahead of you, Nadia. You don't want to get your hands on other people's stuff, especially if it's Molly's legal money. I'll use it to put my daughter back on her feet. After closing the door, Michael went to the hospital. The girl must have been waiting for her sister. She's probably sitting on the windowsill like this morning. You shouldn't keep a child waiting. Besides, he had every reason to make the little girl happy. The papers would be ready in a couple of days, and they could leave this terrible place. Michael, as he expected, saw Molly sitting on the windowsill. When she saw her father, there was no limit to her joy. And no wonder. With the death of her mother and grandmother, she had practically lost Camille. Not just to stay here in this house, but to have a family and people close to her. Now she had found a father. Michael was like she often drew him in her dreams, a brawny military man with the same hair, color, with white ride like her gray eyes and strong hugs. The girl did not even doubt for a moment that Michael was her father. She recognized in him by an inner instinct the kindred man who had come to take her to Siberia. She knew that it was cold there, that the land itself was harsh and not always welcoming to newcomers. But the girl gave herself a vow to conquer these harsh expanses. Just like now, she sat on the windowsill and dreamed while waiting for her father. I want to be a researcher, or maybe I'll be an animal doctor or a military officer like my father. She closed her eyes and mentally imagined how she and Michael would live in their new house, where she would have her own separate room, her own bed, table, and textbooks. Here in this corner she would put the floors of books, and here the table on the windowsill would surely be a red geranium. It was pleasant for her to think. To dream like this, and wait for her father. And here he would be. Molly waved her arms and almost fell off the windowsill. She was scared, but at the same minute she remembered that her father was beside her. He would always pick her up on his arm, even if she fell from the second floor. Molly, please be careful. Michael's heart clenched when the girl almost fell out of the window. He probably wouldn't have survived such a tragedy. No, he knew for sure he'd pick her up. But Daddy, I've waited so long for you. I'm here. Don't worry. I brought you dinner and Lopo's ice cream before it melts. How are you feeling? Good, Dad. That makes my little boy happy. Now listen to me carefully. I'm almost done with all the paperwork. Your birth certificate, where I'll be registered as your father. It's almost done. I'll pick it up one of these days. And there's one more thing." The man looked around carefully, afraid that he was being overheard, but he was alone in the room with his daughter. He got up and opened the door and looked around the corridor. "Daughter, don't worry. I found what you told me about." Treasure Molly almost jumped up on the bed, but Michael managed to pick her up in time and cover her mouth with the palm of his hand. "Don't scream or they might hear us," the man said. "I'm sorry, so there really was treasure in there. Grandma wasn't lying. And you're doubting your grandmother's word." Michael smiled and stroked her head. "No, not at all." The girl shook her head cheerfully. And only at that moment she realized that her life had changed dramatically. "Daddy, when we go to your place, I'll have a new school. Friends, of course you'll have a new school, friends, and a new home. You want to live with me, don't you?" Michael looked carefully at this lovely creature who had changed his life so suddenly. "Very much." A week later, Michael and Molly packed their belongings into 2 small suitcases and quietly left the room in the early morning. Michael scrutinized his temporary shelter once again, and for some reason, for the first time in his life, he crossed himself on the threshold. That was it. Now he could leave here and never come to this town again. He carefully, so as not to wake the neighbors, closed the door, locked the lock with 2 turns of the key, and put it under the mat. This was what he had promised his neighbor Camille, with whom it had been agreed that the room would remain hers. The latter, of course, was delighted. But even more, she rubbed Camille's nose in the fact that she would be able to find hidden treasures in it. But that was it. "Molly, we're leaving. Maybe you should have said goodbye to your friends and told them everything." "No, I'm an adult and I've made my decision. I'm gonna write to my old friends and tell them how I'm living with you in my new home, and they can come visit us later." "Of course they can. Come on, let's go back, and my yaga is in. That's just what my grandmother used to call me." And Molly stopped and cried. For once, the child gave vent to her feelings that she had hidden inside for so long. What can I say? I mean, even a grown man couldn't handle it, and this is a little kid. "My daughter, don't cry. Maybe we should stay here after all. Have you thought it over?" "Yes, I already told you. Let's leave." And she took her father's hand and led him firmly into the street. Just like her mother, Michael thought. So sure, so firm in her actions. A copy of Evelyn. That's why he loved her mother. And now he couldn't get enough of his favorite child. But if the first step had been taken, it was worth going all the way. And Michael went to the sunlight for his little commander, as he later called her. What to say next? This is a different story, which has its own continuation. Very happy. And every participant in the story got his well-deserved reward. Camille got her desired room, but she never found the treasure, though she almost tore up the floors. True, she was able to successfully marry her sons and years later to nurse small grandchildren, in whom he did not dote. Michael, as he wanted, was able to successfully sell some of the jewelry, and for quite a lot of money to build a house and get a job in his native Siberian village forester. He loved these places, although many people said that it was a harsh land. But only here are born real heroes. He loved his work and his daughter, whom his relatives accepted with great joy. What can I say? The girl was just like her father, and appearance and character. Molly grew up and became a beautiful girl. Entered after school, which she graduated with honors in medical school on pediatrician. She dreamed of taking care of all the children of the planet, so that none of them could not experience what she experienced. She still often dreamed about her. Vanessa, who waited on the threshold of her room and sometimes waved at her. Her mother often came in her dreams and stroked her head. From such dreams, Molly woke up all in tears, but realized her mouth would always be with her in her legacy and future. Daddy, when I was little, my grandmother used to tell me that our treasures were proof of nobility. Maybe I should apply to the Nobility Society and get the status quo. Molly, you're all grown up and still going from Cinderella to princess. Dad, I'm gonna argue with you on this one. This is what my grandmother Vanessa wanted. So I'm gonna file the paperwork and include a picture of that necklace we have on it. By the way, glue, macaroni. This I read in an encyclopedia, the mark of a master jeweler who served at the court of the Empress. Yes, who, by the way, was shot by the revolutionaries. Daughter, maybe we should let it lie until better times, right? Emily didn't know what to do. She wanted to do her grandmother's will, but on the other hand, she realized that her father was right. Times are hard right now. Maybe we should just wait it out. Here you know that daughter Michael lived a piece of cutlet, which Molly cooked and continued. Graduated from college. You'll be almost 21. And then you can do whatever you want. Okay. The girl ate and thought, and realized how right her father was. Maybe it was really worth waiting until she graduated from the institute, and then time would tell. She smiled, and looking playfully at her father, suggested Paul. Let's go to the place where I grew up as a little girl. Molly, do you really want to do that? Michael almost choked on his fries. Daddy, I've been dreaming about Mom again. I really want to visit her and Grandma Vanessa's grave. You have no idea, do you? The man put his fork and knife on the table and put his head in our clenched fists. He thought about it. He had long ago made a vow not to remember the place from where he took his little girl, but to visit the graves. Okay, I don't mind just getting through the session. And by the way, I'm taking a vacation in July. We can go there, and then we can go to the sea. Let's do it the other way around. Michael did not understand, looked at his daughter, asking a mute question. How? First we'll go to the sea, and then to the grave of Mom and Grandma. Do you understand? Not Mom, not Grandma, have never been to the sea. And from there I want to bring them seashells and put them on their graves, so they can hear the sound of the sea in the next world. And then Molly couldn't take it anymore. She dreamt of her grandmother again, but now she was walking towards her, asking for directions with her mother, and they waved at her. How she wanted to run up to her grandmother's dress, like she did when she was a child, to hug her with her warm arms and stroke her head. Daughter, but don't cry. The man himself couldn't bear his daughter's tears, and at the mention of Evelyn as well, he soured. He stood up and paced around the kitchen, not knowing how to calm Molly and calm himself. Okay, let's do it this way. I agree. Just don't cry. I won't. I'm sorry. It just came on. Molly went to the bathroom where she was face again with cool water and looked at her reflection in the mirror. Here again eyes will be red until the evening, and she still have to go out with Tolik to dance. The girl fixed her hair in a braided braid and tried to smile to herself. How did she become like her mother? Molly thought, remembering the only picture of Evelyn. But I'm my mother's daughter. She went into the kitchen, where Michael stood by the open window, smoking. On the table was an empty shot glass and a cob, a bottle of cognac. Dad, what were you drinking? Michael himself did not like this business, but now he was so eager to drink just a shot, so to speak, and to memorialize the admirers, that while his daughter was in the bathroom, he could not resist, took out a sealed bottle of cognac from the refrigerator, and poured himself a shot. Yes, sorry, I just couldn't help but remember our dead. Did you say the right thing about the sea? We'll bring them presents. Let them be happy for you and me. Everything will be fine with you. The train rushed and brought in a compartment of father and daughter, who were happy and tanned from the sea. Lucky, thought many people, and they were right. But the faces of Michael and Molly did not shine with joy. Each of them was thinking about their hometown and the days of death they had spent there. Molly, let me go and get you some tea with lemon. Yes, with lemon. Her father's voice brought the girl out of her stupor. She loved him very much and realized that he was having a hard time as well. Once she even stammered to him that maybe you father should marry a second time. You're still young. You're still handsome. But at that moment, Michael looked at her so much that Molly was silent for a long time. Look over there. And the man pointed with his finger to the hold on which Evelyn's picture stood in a beautiful frame. She was, and is, and always will be the mistress of this place. No woman can replace her. You don't count. And turning around, Michael quickly put on his jacket and shoes. He went outside. It was autumn, but he did not notice the passing rain, not the cold dampness that took to the bones. The man walked around town for a beat 2 o'clock, remembering Evelyn, but on the other hand realizing that Molly wanted to do him good. Returning home, he shouted Molly from the doorstep, "You're home." "Yes, Daddy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you, did I? It's just that you love me and you want the best for me." Michael sat down on a chair in the hallway and began to take off his shoes. He quietly said to Evelyn's daughters over there, and he pointed his finger upstairs, "And you are here, you are my whole family and my happiness. Got it? And don't say that to me again. Put some tea on." That's how they lived. And now, standing by the graves of Evelyn and Vanessa, they were each thinking about something different. But now there was no sadness on their faces, only love. "Mom, Grandma, I brought you seashells and your favorite flowers, cornflowers, and for you, Mom, and for you, Grandma, peonies. Good afternoon, Evelyn, and good afternoon to you, Grandma Vanessa, and look at your granddaughter, beautiful future doctor. I didn't abandon her, as many people thought, but raised her to be a beauty." A tear traitorously rolled down to my eyes. The man tried to hold back, but could not. He put candy and cookies on the graves and walked away, wiping his eyes with a handkerchief. Michael has become sentimental. "Don't cry. Look over there," my daughter pointed to the sky. "There's a pair of white swans surrounding it. That's our Grandma and Mom, really, Dad. It can't be otherwise. Let's go to the hotel. It's getting dark. We have an early train tomorrow. Come on, Dad." Father and daughter walked along the country road. They were happy, the two of them, and each realized that better things were ahead. That night, Molly dreamed of her mother and grandmother for the last time. They were standing on a hillock and waving to the girls, and Molly ran toward them with all her legs. She saw herself as a little girl for some reason. "Molly, wake up, daughter. You're dreaming and having a nightmare again." Her father held her by the shoulder, waking up to her screaming, "We should take her to the doctor." "Dad, Mom, and Grandma came to me in my dreams again. They often visit you in your dreams. Did they scare you this time?" "No." The girl wiped her tears with her hands, took a glass of water from the nightstand, and took a couple of sips. "They were saying goodbye to me. Daddy, I won't see them in my dreams anymore." And she burst into tears even harder. "Daughter, they will always live in our memory, in our hearts." They sat like that until almost morning. The daughter snuggled into her father's shoulder and howled sobs. And at dawn, Molly got up and went to the window and opened it wide open. "Daughter, I hope you don't do anything stupid." "I'm fine. I just realized that now I have to say goodbye to them too." I waved to the sun. She waved at the rising sun with both hands. She needed here to let go of her former fears and open like this window of her life to new accomplishments. Now she understood what her mother and grandmother wanted to tell her. "Thank you, my family. I will always remember and love you." They drove home, and all the way home, of the girl's face. Yes, she found her peace of mind next to her father in her new home and the town she had loved from the very first day. She looked out the window and imagined driving to her new life. Like when she was a little girl, when her father took her to a small Siberian town. Everything would be fine, the girl thought, and she was right. After all, everything in her life turned out in the best possible way. As her grandmother wanted, Molly became a doctor and the best pediatrician in the city. She successfully married a wonderful man and gave birth to 2 children, a son and a daughter, who was named Evelyn in honor of her mother. But she did not apply to join the noble society, reasoned that maybe it is not worth stirring up the past, and if I want to become a noblewoman, I can always do it. And now she met her husband from work and set a delicious dinner on the table. Why stir up the past? Let it be there behind the threshold, and here will always be warm and cozy.
subscribe, and click the bell.
Mommy, Mary whimpered, following her mother across the hot asphalt. I'm hot. I'm tired. Can we rest, please? I can't walk anymore. I want to go home. Stop begging. Jenna told her sternly, we have to buy everything, or when will we ever get to the market again? It's the beginning of the school year, and we're not ready. Just be patient. It's not much longer. I'm tired too, but I'm not complaining. You're walking light, and I'm carrying heavy bags. There's no time to rest. The bus won't wait. Can't we just sit down for a little while, please? I'm thirsty. I want ice cream. Can I avoid it and buy some for me and you? Come on, Mommy. Her daughter persuaded her. I said no. There's only a few more things left on the list. Here you go. The woman stopped, shoved a piece of paper under the girl's nose, written in a beautiful teacher's handwriting. Almost everything is already. Be patient a little. You are already 7 years old, and you complain like a little girl. You want to be the first student at school, don't you? We'll buy you a backpack. You can choose whatever you want. I don't want to go to school. Tears came to Mary's eyes. I want to go home. I'm tired. I'm hot. My legs can't walk anymore. Why are you so sad? Her mother looked back at her. Let's go and pick out some boughs. You can buy the ones you like. Look. She stopped at the counter littered with colorful boughs and rubber bands. Do you like these? Mary looked intently at the merchandise. Jenna, trying to distract her daughter, slipped her one bough or the other. Do you want white ones with beads? You'll be the prettiest girl in the class. All the boys will only look at you. Shall we? Okay, Mom. Will you buy me ice cream? With hope in her voice, the girl asked. That's it. Relieved, sighed Jenna, paying the seller. Now you can have a popsicle. Yes, I'll buy you ice cream. Look where they sell it. Are you getting your daughter ready for school? The seller looked at her understandingly, hiding the money in her purse. Yes, the woman smiled. It's hot today as if it wasn't the end of August. I left all my money at the market. She shook her head. Everything is so expensive. Children are expensive. Nodded, agreeing seller. Well, Jenna turned to her daughter. Tell me, what kind of ice cream do you want? The girl rejoiced, grabbed her mother's hand, and pulled her towards the tent, which had ice cream written in large letters on the sign. Mother and daughter made their way to the ice cream maker, a young brisk girl fleeing the scorching rays of the sun under a huge umbrella. I'd like an ice cream cone in a cup. Mary was immediately amused, her fatigue lifted like a hand. Can you buy me a soda with syrup, Mom? It's all sweet, smiled her mother, handing over the money. So what? But it's delicious. The girl impatiently watched as the girl seller leisurely pulled out cups and paper wrapping. Thank you, the girl said, grabbing the ice cream and squeezed her eyes shut with pleasure, taking a bite of the cool treat. That's it, I'm exhausted. Jenna sank down heavily on the bench and, following her daughter's example, also took the ice cream. I can't believe we bought everything. It was like a mountain had fallen off my shoulders. Now we can go home. My dad is probably waiting for us. Let's get some rest. Mary said, Okay, we'll sit, but we have to catch the bus, so watch the clock. Jenna lazily looked at the people walking around the market and was glad that she had time to do everything she wanted to do. Suddenly, her gaze stopped on a gypsy woman who was looking around, saying something quickly to a beautiful girl, holding her hand, who listened, nodding her head obediently. Oh, what's she doing? Jenna said angrily, noticing that the girl had taken money out of her purse and handed it to the gypsy. She instantly hid it in the folds of her oversized skirt. Look at her. She's going to take her for a ride, and not a single policeman around. Who? Mary looked at her mother in bewilderment. Look, the girl. You nomadic tribe of gypsies. I'll show you how to lead honest people by the nose. Jenna jumped up from the bench. Mary, you stay here. Don't you dare go anywhere. Guard the shopping, you understand? I'm gonna take care of this cheater. She strode briskly toward the strange couple. Meanwhile, the girl, apparently having emptied her purse, took a gold bracelet off her wrist and was about to give it to the gypsy when an angry Jenna intercepted her hand. What are you doing, you fool? She looked at the girl reproachfully. She shook her head, as if waking up from a dream, and stared fearfully at her protector. Didn't your father and mother teach you not to trust gypsies? Why are you squandering expensive gifts? Give it back to the girl, Jenna said angrily, turning to the gypsy and grabbing her hand, which she used to snatch the bracelet. Don't touch me. Rose shrieked and wanted to hide it, but Jenna grabbed her firmly with one hand and with the other tried to snatch the jewelry from the deceiver. Tell her, tell her. Looking back at the girl, the gypsy shouted, You gave it to me for the job. I told you the truth. I didn't conceal anything. I'm a third-generation fortune teller. I know everything. I see through everyone. Yes, I gave it to you. The frightened girl mumbled, Oh, why did I give it to you? She looked at the women and at the bracelet. My father gave it to me. He will take off my head for it. Please return it. The fortune teller whimpered. You're stupid, shouted Jenna. She put noodles on your ears, and you're happy. You spent money. You probably didn't earn it yourself. Give me the bracelet, you shameless girl. The woman pushed the gypsy woman. She shook and let go of the jewelry. Take it back. Jenna handed the expensive item to the owner. And run away from here, but do not get caught in the net of these deceivers. They'll rip you off like a stick. Why do you mind your own business? A gypsy woman flew up to her, grabbed her by the hair, and started to rub her. You bastard! Jenna also grabbed her abuser's hair. Don't you dare cheat, girls. Go to work. I'll call the police. You don't think you've got any control. None of your business. The gypsy woman squealed, trying to drop the woman to the ground. Stay out of the way. Her companions jumped up and started to separate them. Rosa, Rosa, stop. Stop her. Let's get out of here. Why did you fight with her? The three of us tried to hold her down, but she lunged like a lioness, lunging at Jenna. You'll remember me. Fixing her hair and breathing heavily, the gypsy woman said, You have no conscience. Barely catching her breath, the woman replied. She wanted to fix her hair, but then she unclenched her fist and was stunned. A strand of black hair was stuck between her fingers. Damn you, damn you, damn you. Spinning her eyes frantically, the gypsy woman shouted, shook her fists above her head, and spat in Jenna's direction. Your unfortunate daughter, because of you will be. The one she loves with all her heart will die in agony. He will take the curse upon himself. Then my words will be dispelled. No one has ever humiliated Rosa like that. You'll pay for your words. You'll pay in full. You'll wash your tears away. Many times you'll remember me and regret that you messed with me. All the participants of the fight at these words froze as if struck by thunder. What are you, that you will bring trouble on yourself? Hissed at her co-workers. Let's go away. Leave her alone. The gypsies left, loudly, continuing to talk in their own language, and Jenna could not come to her senses for some time. The curse words rang in her ears. When she woke up, she shook the stranger's hair from her hand squeamishly and made her way to her daughter. Mommy, Mary asked her fearfully, why did you fight with your aunt? I wanted to punish her for cheating. tiredly answered Jenna. She took out a wet napkin and wiped her face and hands, trying to get rid of unpleasant memories. All the way Mary slept. Rose's angry face kept popping up in her sleep. The girl shuddered and woke up. "Calm down, my little one," said her mother, hugging her by the shoulders and pressing her to herself. "It's only a dream." And she herself, in anxiety, remembered an unpleasant scene at the market. The bus stopped. People reached for the exit. "Why are you both so glum?" Taking the bags, the father asked, meeting the family at the bus stop. "I'll tell you at home." Tiredly, Jenna replied, "We've had too much running, and it's stuffy on the bus. We got carsick, and the bags are heavy. But at home is good. I set the table." "Thank you. I thought I wouldn't make it." "Mom saved my aunt from a gypsy," Mary said cheerfully, jumping up and down. "Look at that." Her mother nodded at her. "How long has it been since she fell down from fatigue? And now she's as good as a cucumber. I wish I were like that." "What's this gypsy story?" asked the father. He opened the door, letting his wife into the house. "Oh, let me at least breathe a little," Jenna begged. She sank down on the couch in the living room. "Thank God I'm home. I thought I was gonna die on the way. Wash your hands and get to the table," the master commanded. A little refreshed after the trip, mother and daughter gladly sat down at the table. "Do you realize how insolent these gypsies are?" Jenna told me. "They took the girl's head off, ripped her off. Why should I stand aside? I rushed to her aid and fought her off. What a mother you are!" Husband grinned. "You found someone to mess with. They are in the business." "Mom is our hero," Mary said proudly. She clung to the gypsy's hair and wouldn't let go. "Yeah, but now she's not happy she interfered." "Why is that?" "She put a curse on Mary, so." The man dismissed it. "It's all fairy tales. You're a modern woman. Do you really believe the words of some gypsy woman?" "What can words do? Think about it." "Nonsense. Spit and forget it." "Don't tell me." Jenna looked at her husband with a concentrated gaze. "What if it's true? What if it comes true?" "I'm afraid I'm for Mary. After all, she said that the daughter's fiancé will die in agony. Then the curse will be lifted." "Stop talking nonsense." Father shouted. "And you, Mary, don't listen to what your mom is saying. It's a gypsy who shouted in her heart to scare you. You're the one who deprived her of a client. So what if the groom dies?" He laughed. "We'll find her another one, won't we, daughter? What a beauty is growing up here. We'll have no shortage of suitors." "How can you say that?" Jenna was really upset. And if it's true, what if it comes true? "What have I done?" "I've had enough of you and your curses. Think less about it and you'll be fine. If you want to believe the gypsy woman's words so much, remember that thoughts are material. Put this nonsense out of your head, forget it and be done with it." Jenna did try to forget the story over time, but Mary kept thinking about the gypsy's words. "Mary, why are you sad?" My father asked. "Are you sitting at home, not going anywhere with your girlfriends? It's bored to spend all your time at school books." "I do not want," replied the girl indifferently. She after this trip, as if replaced. Mother lamented. "Has the curse already begun to work? I've brought misfortune on my daughter." "What kind of nonsense are you talking about?" Angry father. "Are you already obsessed with this story? You see curses everywhere. Now because of this to stay at home all my life. Daughter, you should at least go to the movies. Why don't we all go together?" Mother suggested it. "I can't." Mary refused. "I have a lot of homework. Go without me." "What are we going to do with her?" Jenna sighed sorrowfully. She locks herself in her room and sits there like an owl, thinking and thinking, but she won't tell me what she's thinking. Mary, she begged her, talk to me. What's eating you? I'm a mother. I'll help you. I'll advise you. I'm afraid. The girl confessed. What are you afraid of? What if the gypsy woman's curse comes true? I'll never be able to get married. Silly girl, everything will be all right. Now I regret telling you about the curse. Don't worry about it. It's just words. Father's right, and nothing more. Look how long it's been since that day, and everything is fine in our family. Forget it. Nothing terrible will happen to you. I promise you. But the thoughts of that story never let Mary go. Only when she became an adult, she gradually calmed down. She remembered the gypsy woman's words less and less often. Maybe it's really nothing. She calmed herself down. No, yes, I return in my thoughts to the old story. It's really time to forget. I will not torment myself and start my life with a clean slate. Time passed, and the girl finally believed that the curse did not work. Have you changed your mind about going to medical school? Her friends asked her at the graduation party. No, I've wanted to be a doctor and save people for a long time. I want to go to the city. There are so many opportunities there. Isn't it a shame to throw away 6 years of your life? Saving people's lives is not an easy task. It takes a lifetime to learn. Mary was philosophizing, which made her classmates sad. You're a fool, Mary. The best years will pass you by. Nothing mine will not leave me. The girl smiled. I'll make up for it. Together with her friends, she went to the city to enroll, but in the first year she failed to pass the exams. Mom, I failed the exam. Mary cried into the telephone receiver. It's a shame. It's just a little short. I wanted to get in so badly. Mary soothed her mother. Maybe it's for the best. Pack up and come home. Why should you stay in the city in rented corners? Here you'll get a job. No worries with us. Mary was ashamed to return home, but she overpowered herself. She understood her mother was right and did not linger in the city. Well, this university. Rejoiced by the return of his daughter, said the father, you'll work, and then maybe you won't want to go anywhere else. Well, no, firmly answered the daughter. I will work, and in the evenings to prepare for enrollment. I'll still get my way. You cannot talk me out of it. Why are you stubborn? The mother wailed. You didn't enroll right after school. Do you think you'll get wiser in a year? I'll get in anyway. You'll see. The girl did not give in to persuasion, stood her ground. She spent her days in the library reading textbooks. And why do you go to the library? Parents asked. You could sit at home and prepare yourself. Why are you inventing? I can't do it at home, but the reading room disciplines me. You'll soon collapse from fatigue. In the evenings, Mary worked in a cafe as a waitress. If only she could go out with her friends on her day off. Her father persuaded her, but Mary refused all the tempting offers. She stubbornly prepared for admission and was not going to give up. A girl? She heard one day when she was serving tables in a cafe. We've been waiting for the order to arrive for a long time. Could you please find out what the delay is? Mary turned around at the voice and blushed. A handsome young man was looking at her sternly. Dark curly hair was neatly enrolled back, but a knotty strand constantly fell on his forehead, from which the young man, from time to time, threw her head back. Brown eyes with interest followed the girl. I'll ask. Embarrassed, said Mary and hurried to the kitchen. What's wrong with you? The shift attendant asked cheerfully, noticing how excited the girl was. Did you see a ghost? No. Barely catching her breath, she answered. There are young people waiting for the order for a long time. We'll fix that now." The waitress easily picked up the tray, and in 2 minutes, Mary could hear her laughing, flirting with the young men. She watched enviously as the girl interacted easily with the customers. Mary barely made it to the end of her shift. In every spare minute, the image of the laughing, handsome man surfaced in front of her. "You can't think about him." She reprimanded herself. Preparing for admission, that's what should worry her now. But her poor heart wouldn't listen to reason. Bye. She waved to her colleagues and stepped into the darkness of the evening. Mary was in a hurry to get home. "Girl." She heard a familiar voice behind her, and her heart beat fast. "May I meet you?" Mary looked back at her, smiling broadly, looked at the young man, who for the first time in her life brought confusion to a soul that had never been touched by first love. "Excuse me." On the move, she replied, "I'm in a hurry. My mom doesn't want me to talk to strangers. I can't let you down. I've got a car." He grabbed her arm, stopping her. "Come on. Don't be afraid of me. I don't hurt the little ones." "I'm not afraid. I just really don't have time. Sit down." The stranger opened the car door in front of her. "I'll take you wherever you want to go, and we'll get acquainted." Your blue eyes pierced through my heart. I can't think of anyone but you. I barely waited for your shift to end. Are you laughing? Not at all. He's suddenly serious. I've really been thinking about you since the first moment I met you. I always thought that only happened in books. You don't believe me. You don't know me at all. Maybe I'm a quarrelsome, insufferable person or an arrogant, greedy upstart. I don't know. The young man nodded in agreement. But my sixth sense tells me that fate itself has given me the gift of meeting you, which means that you can be neither arrogant nor quarrelsome. Are we going, or are you running through the dark streets alone? Still hesitating, Mary glanced at her watch. I'm late today, and my parents are probably worried. Let's go. It's faster to drive than to walk. That's great. The young man was happy. It is dangerous for a girl to walk alone in the evening streets, even if you know them from childhood. The young man drove confidently. What is your name, beautiful stranger? Without taking his eyes off the road, he asked. Mary. The girl answered, embarrassed. She still could not believe that she was riding in a car with a man, and even with the one who had occupied her thoughts all evening. And me, David. Isn't it scary coming home so late? No, I'm used to it. What, you don't have another job? My schedule suits me. I have more time to study during the day. Are you studying? No, I didn't get in. So I'm sitting at my books, so I can get in next year for sure. The young people chatted merrily. Time flew by. Well, I'm home, reported Mary. David reluctantly stopped the car. I hope I'm not crossing some hot fan if I ask permission to walk you again tomorrow. I have tomorrow off. Mary smiled. I'll get some sleep. That's wonderful. David cheered. I have the day off too. I don't want to leave you guys. Let's go to the city tomorrow, to the amusement park. Only in the evening. I'm studying at the library during the day. Okay, then I'll call you. I'll call you. Mary nodded. They exchanged phone numbers. David helped the new acquaintance out of the car and escorted him to the porch. Mary, do you want me to take a call? I accept. The girl smiled. She wanted to open the door, but suddenly David leaned over and lightly touched her lips with his lips. Mary did not recoil. She was pleased by the man's touch. I want you to think about me all night. Quietly, he spoke. The girl disappeared behind the door, and David still did not leave and did not leave. He could still taste her kiss on his lips. The young man suddenly jumped up, laughed, and ran to the car. From that day on, the young people hardly ever parted. Mary? Jenna asked. Are you too serious about David? Yes, Mommy, I'm so happy. He's so good, so kind, so attentive. A courteous young man who loves you. You might even get married, but it's too early for you. And if the children come right away, Mom, we're not going to get married yet. I have to study, you know. When I graduate, then we can think about getting married. And not right away, because I have 6 years to study at university, and I'm not going to give up my plans. She didn't tell her mother that David wasn't thrilled that she wanted to go to university. Why would you want to go to university? He was puzzled. A woman has a home to run. What does it matter if you have an education or not? Is it higher or secondary? You can find a job even without education. We will raise agriculture in the village. Working hands are worth their weight in gold here, or you'll go to the city and won't want to come back. You'll forget me. You'll meet some city beauty and leave me, a provincial. Why do you say that? I love you. Don't you understand? The girl was bitter. I have dreamed since childhood to become a doctor and then go to work in a big city. We could go together. Can you imagine how great it would be? I'll definitely become a famous doctor. You'll be proud of me. Think about it. There are hundreds of people like you in the big city. Do you think you'll get a job in a good clinic? What am I going to do? You'll have to rent an apartment, and here you have your parents' house and me. We'll build our own, have kids. What else do you need in life? But there are no prospects here. The hospital is small. The medical equipment is outdated. I dream of working in a modern hospital. What's the use of studying? I was angry, David. The main thing is to be together. I think a woman should be self-sufficient. Why? It's up to the man to create a good environment for a woman. Listen, Mary, when you and I get married, and we will, as soon as you're 18, I want you to put school out of your mind. I'll provide for you. You won't need anything. A woman's main purpose is family. My darling. Mary laughed and kissed the young man. I won't be able to stay at home. I like to treat people, and no one can dissuade me from going to university, not even you. I love you, but I dream of being an independent woman and securing a good future for myself. Only then will I feel truly happy. You don't trust me. Why wouldn't I trust you? Why do you say that? I just don't want to turn into a sackcloth. Can't I fulfill my dream? What kind of a house party are you having? Such quarrels happen quite often, but the young people after a quarrel immediately made peace, and nothing could disturb their happy life. Mary's birthday was coming up. How shall we celebrate it? David asked. 18 years doesn't happen every year. Shall we go to a restaurant in town? Let's go to the countryside. Mary suggested. She had already passed her university exams and was waiting for admission. The weather's great. It's a day off. Shall we invite some friends? I don't want to go to a restaurant. You'll throw away money, but you won't have any fun. You can't step here. You can't say so. I want to go simple. All right, David agreed. Shish kebabs, so shish kebabs, the birthday girl orders music. On the weekend, they went to the riverbank. The weather was perfect, sunny, no wind, warm water beckoned to them. Lucky you, Mary. Her friends envy her. David, he can't take his eyes off you. He's such a guy. How many girls were pining for him? And he only thinks about you. It's like you meet by chance and fall in love. I thought you could only dream of such love. Why don't we go for a swim? Suddenly someone suggested it. The whole group went into the water. Guys, how about a race to the middle of the river? Suggested one of the young men. Like children. The girls laughed. What are you thinking of? Let's go to the table. The kebab is getting cold. Now, David looked back at Mary, entering the water. "Let's swim in and sit down at the table. It's very hot. I don't want to leave the water. Would you like to freshen up? We'd rather look at you," answered Mary, admiring her chosen one. "Mary," shouted one of the disputants. "Command. 1, 2, 3. Mary commanded, and the boys swam off, parting the water with strong sweeps of their arms. "Look, Mary," said her friend cheerfully. "You're ahead of the pack, you handsome fellow, and the others are not lagging behind." The girl stood up for her friends, and her soul was singing. My most beloved, my most desired, my dearest." Mary, smiling, watched how stubbornly David kept the lead. The young men were already swimming back, as suddenly the head of his beloved disappeared under the water. The girl continued to smile and waited that he was about to surface from the water. Triumphant victory. But a second and another passed, and he was still gone. "David!" The girl cried out and ran to meet the swimmers. "What are you doing, Mary?" Her friends rushed after her. "What happened?" "Help! Call an ambulance!" Mary screamed, rushing to the water. David's friends, breathing heavily, were already coming out of the river. "Why are you yelling?" Barely catching his breath, one David asked. He had dived in, and that was it. He was nowhere to be found. "Something happened. Hurry up." The guys rushed to help, dived several times before they carried the breathless body of their buddy to the shore. An ambulance was already rushing to their aid. "Doctor, how is he?" Mary asked, watching anxiously as the doctors tried to bring the young man back to consciousness. He had already opened his eyes, but still had difficulty understanding what had happened. "It's all right, it's all right. We'll take him with us. Watch him for a couple days. He swallowed a lot of water. Good thing we got him to shore in time. Don't worry, he'll be fine. The medics have put him on a stretcher." "Mary," David said in a weak voice, helplessly, looking at her and squinting at the sun. "I'm all right now. Have you frightened us?" Early hot tears on the snow-white sheet that the young man was covered with, said the girl. "I'm sorry. I spoiled your holiday. I'm really ashamed of myself. We wanted to amuse you a little, and it turned out to make you cry. It's nothing. The important thing is that you're alive. I should have listened to you and gone to the restaurant. Then nothing would have happened." "That's strange." David's friends didn't understand. "He's the best swimmer among us. What happened to him? Did he overheat in the sun?" They put it down to fatigue and heat. Try not to swim in the heat. David, the attending physician, admonished him. Next time there might not be any saviors around. Take care of yourself. 2 days later, the young man was discharged from the hospital, and gradually the unpleasant incident was forgotten. "Mary?" One day David told the girl, "The guys invited me to take part in a motorcycle race. Do you know how to ride a motorcycle?" The girl was surprised. "Of course, I and the guys at school, we were fond of it. Even in the city races participated. Then, however, abandoned and sold the motorcycle, the car switched to a car, and here I got the opportunity to ride, to remember how we used to race. My friend talked me into it and gave me his motorcycle. It's a sin to refuse such an offer. I wanted to feel the speed again. Is it okay that you haven't ridden a motorcycle for a long time? It's nothing. I'll ride the day before, and I'll remember. I just need to get a feel for the technique. Are you coming to watch? I'd love it if you met me at the finish line." "Yeah." Mary clapped her hands together. "I'd love to see you. I admit I've never been on a motorcycle, but I've dreamed of riding one. Then we'll meet on Sunday. We'll go to the country. There's a track, and then I'll take you for a spin. You'll ask me to teach you how to drive a motorcycle. The girl was looking forward to the day off. In the morning, they drove towards the place where the motocross was held. There were people standing along the track, eagerly waiting for the race to start. Mary stood at the finish line to meet David. Right after the race, she heard the start announced and, infected by the general cheering, eagerly watched for her favorite racer to show up. She watched the first riders finish the race and waited for the familiar motorcycle to appear. Oh, look! She heard it suddenly beside her. She felt the crowd stirring. Something had happened. An ambulance had gone to the highway. Mary's heart gave an anxious, twitching thump. Had someone crashed? She asked. Probably should ask the organizers. Someone has definitely crashed. The next ambulance is on its way. It's not necessarily a racing driver. Maybe someone in the audience got sick. Yeah, at the races every year someone goes off the track, just not to their death. The girl with difficulty got through the crowd to the finish line, tried to find out what happened. Racers one by one crossed the finish line. Only David was missing. Tell me, she rushed to the organizers. Were any of the riders hurt? A girl. A middle-aged man in a tracksuit tried to brush her off. We have no right to give such information. What are you, a journalist? No, I'm David's fiancée. She said the young man's last name. The man looked at her sympathetically and said, "It's bad luck for your boy. He's out of the race, and he was among the leaders all the time. Where is he? What hospital did they take him to? Don't worry about it. It was just bumps and bruises." The man reassured her. But Mary, tears streaming down her cheeks, was already running to the cab rank. Doctor. She caught the head of the department in the hospital corridor. What about David? Lucky guy, the doctor said glumly. No fractures, but he'll have to stay with us. Can I see him? He was about to forbid, but looking at the girl's crying face, changed his mind. You can, but not for long. He treated bruises and wounds, injected anesthetic, let him rest. Mary cautiously entered the room. David was lying in bandages, his face covered with abrasions and bruises. David, the girl whispered, approaching him. My darling. The boy could hardly open his eyes. Mary, have you come? I wanted to hug you at the finish line. He tried to smile. I overestimated my strength. My self-confidence failed me. I thought I would get on the bike and everything would come back to me at once, but I should have practiced. Without training, you shouldn't go to the track. I upset you again. It's okay. You'll do it next time. She ran her hand through his hair, leaned over and kissed him on the lips. Just get well soon. The doctor forbade to talk to you for a long time. Rest, and tomorrow I'll come again. Okay, I'll miss you. Me too, get well. I love you. Love you. David was discharged 2 weeks later. He immediately arranged a meeting with Mary in a cafe, and the lovers couldn't stop talking. Mary looked at him affectionately, and the young man did not let her hand out of his hands. David? The girl suggested. My parents have long wanted to meet you. Maybe on the weekend we can get together at our place? I'm going to start school soon, but while I'm free, why don't we get together? You'll be a guest. You'll get your strength back. I don't mind. David replied. That's great. I'll tell my parents to expect a guest this weekend. They received a warm welcome. Jenna put together a rich table so that the future son-in-law and the parents had no doubt that the wedding was coming. If they came to get acquainted, was satisfied with the meeting. Mom, Dad, this is my David. Mary, glowing with happiness, introduced the young man. Glad to meet you. Shaking hands, said the father. He liked the young man immediately. Now there will be someone to go to the sauna and drink beer with, because with this woman's kingdom, no pleasure from life will not get. What are you talking about, Father? Jenna looked at him reproachfully. What will David think of us? Why? Don't tell me you don't go to the sauna or drink beer. Suspiciously, he looked at the young man. Why not? David was embarrassed. In good company, I don't mind. That's what I understand, man. His father rejoiced and everyone laughed. David was embarrassed at first, but then he calmed down. Everyone talked and laughed happily, and the young man felt like a part of the family. What good parents you have, David remarked, and they love you very much. Yes, I love them very much too, and they liked you, she declared. Finally, September came, and Mary started school. The young people visited their parents less often. Mary, one day the mother called. We had a hurricane here, made a mess of things. A tree fell on the neighbor's roof, and our slate was blown away. My father can't cope alone. If you and David could come and help us. It's going to rain soon. I'm afraid it'll flood the whole attic. Mary took a leave of absence from the university and arrived at her parents' house that afternoon. David, too, put all his work aside and came to help. While the men were re-roofing the roof, the women were busy in the kitchen, heating the stove. The men were talking about something. Watch out! Suddenly they heard their father shouting. The women heard a sheet of iron hit the roof, followed by a thud. Something sprinkled and rang. You punishment. Mother, Mary, hurry. David fell from the roof. Mary jumped out first. David was sitting on the ground, pale, frightened, and gently supporting his arm. David, what's wrong? The girl rushed to him. My arm. Writhing in pain, the young man said, It seems to be broken. Why didn't you? The boy's father. Jenna wailed. He came to help and almost got killed. What a disaster. You should have hired some outside men. You gotta pay men. Justified the father, looking at David confused. And the job was easy. Who knew that it would end like this? I haven't had much luck lately. David lamented, getting into the ambulance that Mary had called. She'd come with him. I accidentally stumbled and fell. I don't know what's wrong. But I do. Mary thought to herself, but she didn't say anything to the young man. Your fiancé will have to stay here tonight. Why? David tried to object. Just put a plaster cast on him and he's fine. Maybe you have a concussion. I don't like the way you look. The doctor said. It's worth a follow-up. Mary went home alone. How embarrassing in front of the boy. Shaking her head, her mother said as the family gathered around the table. Good thing he only broke his arm. Lucky, you might say. Is it a joke to fall from such a height? Oh, my father didn't save the boy. What if he'd been killed? What's it got to do with me? I've been on the roof too, and it's okay. It's just a matter of fate. Mary? Asked Jenna, the daughter, when they were alone. Why are you so thoughtful? It's all right. It's not a hard fracture. It'll heal, and she won't remember. Things happen in life. If you knew where you'd fall, you'd have made a bed. Mother? Mary looked at her mother anxiously. I think it's the Gypsy's curse that's beginning to take effect. Are you out of your mind? It's been years. I don't believe it. It can't be. So what if I fell down? Who knows? It's the third time he's fallen over recently. And Mary told her mother about how the young man almost drowned and then almost crashed his motorcycle. Oh boy! Jenna exclaimed. I'd forgotten about the curse. I thought it hadn't come true, but there it was. What should I do, Mom? The girl asked in despair. What to do is to find a Gypsy and ask her to remove the curse. And where to look for her? I don't remember her at all. only her name, Rosa. I think we should go to Lisa. They say she can lift even the strongest curse. Mary didn't sleep much that night. She was afraid for David, but she didn't know what to expect from Lisa. Come in, beautiful. Don't be shy. Lisa smiled in a friendly manner and pointed to the chair opposite her. What was it? What will be? What will soothe my heart? I'll tell you everything. What has happened to such a young girl? I see the sadness in your eyes. Tell me what's on your mind. Just tell me what's on your mind. Otherwise, I can't help you. Can you lift the curse? I asked Mary, quiet. Lisa shouted at her. Don't talk loudly. Tell me what the curse is. And Mary told the story in detail. Her name was Rose. The girl finished her story. I don't remember her much. I was little. Oh, my golden girl? The gypsy woman shook her head sadly. I will try, of course, to help you, but the problem is that the curse is directed not at you, beautiful girl, but at the man who will love you. You got a fiancé, you love him. I have a fiancé, that's why I'm here. He's been having one misfortune after another lately. So far, it's been limited to various injuries, but I'm afraid it'll end in tragedy someday. I'll never forgive myself if he dies. Help me. Tell me what to do. I'll pay anything. I'll pay any money. Just save me. Get rid of the curse. My diamond. Lisa shook her head. Sometimes money is powerless. Give me your hand. Beautiful, I can tell your fate by your hand. Lisa took Mary's hand, looked at the lines on it for a long time, then whispered something to herself. Then she lit a candle, took a small bundle of some herb from the shelf, set it on fire, and with the smoke began to fumigate the girl. She walked around her and said something. Mary was frightened, trembling with excitement, the smell of smoke, and a headache. At last Lisa fell on a chair, put her hands on the table, dropped her head on them and lay like that. The girl was afraid to move. I'm sorry, my good girl. At last the gypsy woman spoke, raising her head. I couldn't remove the spoil. Your Rosette is a real witch. I'm weak against her. The woman confessed. What can I do? Mary said in despair. Tears came to her eyes. There are two ways out. Answered the gypsy woman. Either you'll spend the rest of your life with your husband, if you marry for love, or look for someone who will take away the curse. As soon as you choose him, you will get sick, wither, and it won't take long to get that. The gypsy woman pointed to the sky. Only you must love him, and he must love you truly. You can deceive yourself and people. Pretend that you love him, but you can't deceive the gypsy plot. It will still catch up with you. What's that? Mary's mouth is dry. I have to sacrifice the person I love. Otherwise, you won't get rid of the curse. The gypsy woman said firmly, I would rather not marry at all than sacrifice my beloved. She jumped up from her chair and ran out into the street. Mary? Her mother met her in the yard. What did Lisa say? Your face is gone. Mommy. The girl threw herself on her chest and sobbed. I'll have to suffer alone all my life. Lisa couldn't do anything to make me happy. The man I love must die for me. I can't let that happen. It's better to be alone than to pay such a sacrifice, and to marry someone I don't love. I don't agree either. To live with someone you don't love is nothing but misery. Daughter, Jenna was ready to burst into tears herself. Let's go home. Why are we standing in the street? We're bothering the neighbors. Tell me, what did she tell you? That's what she said. Mary was sobbing. The man I love with all my heart must die in agony. Only then the curse will lose its power, said Rosa, the real witch. What do we do now? Me, I'll chase David away. Let him go. Let him forget me. Let him live. How can you drive him away? He loves you madly. He'll never say no. I must make him leave my life forever. What a misfortune. My mother shook her hands. I wanted to help a man, but what misfortune did I bring on my own daughter? So don't believe in conspiracies. Should David tell her everything? No, the girl answered firmly. Then he will stay for sure. I must talk to him in such a way that he would leave and never even think of coming back to me. Mary stayed up half the night, crying, trying to find a way out of the situation. Realizing that she could not do otherwise, David must leave. She came to meet him from the hospital with a heavy heart. Mary! He welcomed her, opened his arms, and pressed her against him. I missed you so much. More than anything, I want to get in my car and drive away. I want to kiss you. He looked at her affectionately. David. The girl pulled away from him and tried to keep her voice cold. We need to talk. What's wrong, my love? He still continued to smile. You know that I can disperse any clouds gathered over your head with my bare hands. I'll tear them all apart for you. Let's go home. My parents aren't here yet, so we can talk about it. Good. I'm so happy to see you. He tried to kiss her, but Mary recoiled. Her heart was bleeding, but she knew she couldn't do otherwise. At home, she invited him to sit at the table and took a seat across from him. You and I must part. Mary said firmly. What do you mean? Break up? The smile slipped from his face. Are you out of your mind? We were getting married? I realize that my decision is unexpected for you, but I've thought it over. I have to get an education, and you will interfere with me. You're the one who said you're against me studying and then becoming a doctor. I'm not ready to sacrifice my ambitions. Mary, my dear Mary, David's talking to me like a little girl. I don't mind if you study, as long as that's the reason for the breakup. I don't want to lose you. I'll do whatever you want, and I won't interfere with your studies. But you shouldn't make such big decisions alone. We're adults. Let's talk about this together. You don't understand. Mary gripped the fingers of her hands tightly. We can't be together. I have a goal, and I'm going to it. You're an obstacle. I don't want to be distracted by anything else but my studies. We have different outlooks on life. I need another man who understands me and supports me in everything. Let's not torture each other. Let's part as friends. Every word was difficult for her. Tears were ready to spill out of her eyes, but she held on. Mary, the young man spoke quietly. What friends? We love each other. I see that you love me. I could not be mistaken. Why ruin everything? I don't understand. I don't have to explain anything to you. Coldly, the girl replied, Please go away and forget me. Find yourself another bride and be happy with her. But I don't want another. I can be happy only with you. Is there any other reason why you're driving me away? Frankly, I'm not convinced by your arguments. Study in peace if you want to. I'm not going to stop you. Why break up the relationship? What's gotten into you while I've been in the hospital? I'm not going anywhere. I want to stay with you. Go away. Coldly, Mary said and stood up. You are no longer welcome here. Forget about me forever. Okay, David stood up. If that's what you ask, I'll leave. I really hope you'll come to your senses and come back to me. Don't hope I won't come back. Mary, you're making a very big mistake. The girl was silent. She was afraid to raise her eyes to him. She knew that he would read in them very different words from those she had spoken aloud. The young man stood looking at her intently. Then he quickly gathered himself, got into his car, and drove away. Sobbing, Mary ran into the room, fell on the bed. Mary, her mother and father returned just after David had left. My poor little girl, Worried about her, cried Jenna. She stroked Mary's head, as in childhood, soothing, pitying. What agony you are taking. Cry? Cry, sweetheart. It'll be easier. Mommy, replied the girl, breaking away from the pillow and sitting down next to her mother. It will never be easier for me now. My heart breaks to pieces when I think about David. I don't know how I'm going to live without him. I want to die. What are you? What are you, sweetheart? Don't even think such thoughts. It's nothing. God willing, everything will pass. Everything will be over. The agony will be gone. The woman embraced her daughter, pressed her against herself, trying to share her pain. He'll hate me now. Well, let him, I don't care anymore. You'll meet another good man. Jenna was as comforting as she could be. A woman can't be alone. Well, you won't have a passionate love, so how many families live like that? Mary sat on the bed, staring thoughtlessly into the void. Her hands were resting on her lap. She didn't know how she would learn to live without David. Time heals. Mary knew that for sure. She went away to study with her friends in the dormitory. Lectures, seminars, library classes took up all her free time, but sometimes David came to her in her dreams and looked at her reproachfully. The girl woke up in tears, but did not give in to a moment of weakness, persistently devoted all her time to her studies. Mary more than once called out to her roommates. Shall we go to the club? Let's dance, relax. There are so many boys hanging out there. We'll get to know each other, have fun. How long can you sit your books? I don't go to clubs and I'm not going to meet anyone. Refused the girl and defiantly opened some textbook or notebook, using them as a shield from the annoying attention of neighbors. I don't understand. One of her friends was puzzled. How can you spend all your time with textbooks? Life is passing you by. Really, Mary? Another one echoed her. At our age, only to go out. But tell me, don't you want to meet some guy? Yes, she's afraid of them. The girls laughed. I'm not frightened, just my studies are in the first place. Calmly answered the girl, and she remembered how recently a classmate caught up with her after class. Mary, smiling, the guy suggested, let's go to the movies. Sorry, I have a library in the evening. Screw the library, don't you have any other interests? I like it. Without stopping, the girl replied. Don't try. She heard the voice of another classmate. She's a bit of a prude. Maybe you're already married. So tell us, we'll understand. Or maybe you're sick. The guys laughed. None of your business. She snapped at them. Stay away from me. She's so formidable. Hey, hussy, you're really sick. Such beauty is wasted. Mary did not care about all these attacks. She was not going to open her soul to anyone and explain the reason for her closeness. A year of study flew by. The girl passed the last exam and decided to run into a cafe near the university. They sold delicious pastries. She made an order and sat down at the table. Can I keep you company? She suddenly heard and raised her head. A young man stopped next to her. His smiling blue eyes struck Mary so much that, without saying a word, she nodded her head, giving permission. I'm going. I see a pretty girl is bored. My name is Jordan. What's yours? Mary, but I'm not bored. A little tired after the exam. So you're a medical student? Yes, but I'm a long way from being a doctor. I've only finished one course. They talked for a while, then the girl stood up. Excuse me, I have to go. Wait, how come? Jordan was confused. Can I walk you out? I live nearby, in the dormitory. So what? I'll still enjoy walking with such a beautiful girl. Mary blushed. She liked this guy. She didn't expect to meet such a charming man, and she didn't want to part with him either. "Aren't you going to work?" "I have my own small firm, so I can afford to be late from lunch. No one will scold me." He smiled broadly, and Mary smiled. The next day, Jordan was waiting for her outside the dormitory with flowers. "I bought tickets for us," joyfully informed the young man. "I haven't been to the movie theater for a long time." "Thank you for getting me out of the house, or else I'm completely memorized." Gratefully, Mary smiled at him. When the light went out in the hall, Jordan boldly took Mary's hand. She did not resist. She was pleased with the touch of a young man. After the session, they walked back to the dormitory. "Did you like the movie?" Jordan asked. "Yes, very much. Thanks again for a wonderful evening, Mary," Jordan said, looking into her eyes as he drove away. "I'm so happy that fate brought us together. I've only known you for a day, but it feels like I've known you forever. That's never happened to me before. I'm so sorry to part with you. I'm ready to spend the whole night under the windows of your room, just to know that you are near. I'm glad to meet you two," the girl confessed. "The girls and I are moving into an apartment tomorrow. It's the beginning of vacation, and we're staying to work. So you and I will still be able to see each other." Jordan was happy, and the young people swirled in the whirlpool of their feelings. They met almost every day. The relationship grew so fast that Jordan one day suggested, "Mary, why should you spend money on an apartment? Why don't you move in with me?" "I'm not comfortable." The girl was embarrassed. "We don't know each other very well. I want you around me 24 hours a day. Every time I say goodbye to you, I feel like we'll never see each other again. I want to wake up and fall asleep next to you. I'm sure that's what you want too. I think we should take our time." "Why wait? I love you and I'll never hurt you if you're afraid of that. Sometimes all it takes is one look to find your soulmate. Why wait years when it's so clear between us?" So Mary moved into his apartment, and they were really happy. Mary was studying. She had only a little time left to get her diploma. From time to time, she went home to see her parents. One day, Jordan, as always, met his beloved at the train station. He got out of the car to meet her. "Darling, I have a surprise for you," he mysteriously informed her, kissing her on the cheek. "I love surprises," Mary replied. The young man pampered her, gave her jewelry, bought tickets to concerts of favorite artists, to the theater. The two of them could go for a weekend in the country to relax in nature. "Then let's hurry home. Tell me, what's the surprise? Please don't keep me waiting." Getting into the car, the girl persuaded him all the way home. "No way," answered Jordan. "I want to torture you a little." "Oh, you do?" Mary was jokingly angry. "So you like to torture me? You said you loved it." The young man stopped the car, turned to her, and looking straight into her eyes, said seriously, "I love you very much, but I still won't reveal the secret until later." Mary swung her fist at him. Laughing, exchanging jokes, they hurried home. "Close your eyes," Jordan asked as they entered the apartment. Mary obeyed, the smile never leaving her face as Jordan led her into the living room. "Now open them." "Jordan," the girl gasped, barely opening her eyes. "How wonderful." "What's the occasion? Did I miss something while I was visiting my parents? I couldn't have forgotten some important date, could I?" The table was set in the middle of the room, candles burning, flowers and vases everywhere. Jordan looked at her with a serious expression. "Mary, you and I have known each other for a number of years. I confess that I fell in love with you from the first moment I saw you in the cafe. I didn't dare to ask you to become my wife for a long time. I was afraid that you would refuse." He took a beautiful velvet box from the table, opened it, got down on one knee in front of the girl, but today I dared to ask, "Will you marry me?" Mary put the ring on her finger, took the head of her beloved in her hands, looked with tenderness into his blue eyes, and answered firmly, "Yes, I will be your wife." The young man stood up, embraced her, kissed her. God, I could not even dream that such a girl would give me her consent. They sat down at the table, raised glasses of champagne, congratulated each other. "Just do not persuade me to give up my studies and devote myself to housework." Mary wagged her finger at me. I had no such thoughts. I know what it means to do what I love. I think we'll get married after we get our diploma. Would that be okay? Thank you for understanding me. The girl smiled at him. It's very important for me to finish my studies. I have to match you. She laughed. It is unlikely that you will be interested with the wife of an understudy. I love you all kinds. Jordan said quietly, "Only if you were always with me." After the wedding, we will go on a trip. Where would you like to go? I don't know. With you, I could go to Antarctica to the penguins. We still have time to decide. You're my fiancé now. That's all I can think of. The happy celebration was just over a year away. Their little family lived a cloudless happiness. Every spare moment they tried to spend with each other. "You've spoiled me completely." Mary jokingly criticized him when Jordan sat next to her in the evenings, took her in his arms like a little girl, wrapped her in a blanket and cradled her, enjoying the closeness. "I want to feel you all the time, to hold you, to kiss you. Who knows how we will live on?" He was thinking. "And children will appear there, and in general time to be like this, one-on-one will not be." At such moments, the girl leaned her head on the young man's shoulder and liked to listen to the beating of his heart. It seemed that nothing could overshadow their happiness. "Yes, my love." Mary answered the phone, but instead of Jordan's voice, she heard a complete stranger's. "Mary, we called you because your number is the last on the list of numbers of the man we found unconscious in the street." "What?" The girl felt a chilling fear creep into her heart. "Where is he? What's wrong with him?" "He was found on the street by passers-by. He's in our hospital now. We need to confirm his identity." Mary dropped everything and went to the hospital. Barely waited to see the attending physician. They wouldn't let her into Jordan's room, only let her look through the glass. "Is this someone you know?" "Yes, he's not just an acquaintance, he's my fiancé. Can I stay with him?" "Wait for the attending physician. He'll explain everything." "Doctor, what's wrong? Why won't they let me see him?" The girl looked at the man in alarm. "He's still unconscious. There are no external injuries. We've examined him thoroughly." "Go home. When he comes to, we'll let you know." "No, I'll stay here and wait for him." "Is he going to be all right?" "Tell me, why did he lose consciousness?" "We don't know the cause yet, but we'll find out. We'll do an examination, then we can talk about the cause of the fainting." Jordan regained consciousness in the evening. Mary came right away. "How you frightened me." The girl cautiously entered the room and sat down beside her beloved, looking anxiously at his face. There was not a speck of blood on it. Blue eyes faded. "What did the doctor say?" "Nothing concrete yet. They ask a lot of questions." "Jordan's been sluggish. You must have overworked yourself, so your body malfunctioned. You'll be as good as new again." She ran her hand through his hair, down his cheek, took his hand. Her fingers were cold. "I guess I've run away." Suddenly Jordan said, "What are you talking about?" "There are good doctors here. They will definitely put you on your feet, establish the cause of fainting, and prescribe treatment. I'll come to see you every day. You just don't get discouraged. I know you men." She smiled approvingly. "She panics." On the third day, Mary got a call from the doctor asking her to come in. "Mary," he began. The girl suddenly realized that something irreparable was about to happen. "I have bad news. Jordan has brain cancer, terminal stage." She cried out, put her hand over her mouth. "I'm sorry about your fiancé, but there's nothing we can do for him." "I don't believe it." In despair, breaking her hands, said the girl, "You've made a mistake. Double-check the tests again. He was perfectly healthy. He never complained about anything. He's so young, it's a mistake, a mistake. He didn't complain. He didn't have to be healthy. This type of cancer is very insidious. A person may feel a slight indisposition and write it off as fatigue, a cold, but in the meantime the disease develops. Do you remember if he ever complained about anything in passing? Sometimes he'd say, Mary was thinking, that he had a headache. A month ago he complained that he couldn't see very well, as if his eyes were foggy, and I began to notice that he was bumping into furniture, doors, as if he was out of coordination. That's right. A person doesn't pay attention to such little things, and meanwhile the cancer is already gnawing at him. It's very aggressive. Is there nothing that can be done? Alas, the doctor waved his hands. It's too late. At this stage, all our efforts are for naught. Even abroad, no one will take him on. The tumor is not operable, and chemo is already useless, only to torment the patient. We'll support him, of course, but only to relieve the pain. Mary hesitated and then said with difficulty, How long does he have left? Not long, I'm afraid. 3 months, 4 at the most. I'm so sorry. Does Jordan know he's ill? Yes, we had to tell him. He needs to know what he's going through. Stay strong. Your support is very important to him right now. Mary walked out of the office exhausted, clamped her hands over her mouth, pressed herself against the cold concrete wall, and sobbed deeply. No, this can't be true, she thought. I don't want to lose him. How will I live without him? How will I look into his eyes? What will I say? But she realized that she could not leave him at such a difficult moment, alone with the disease. With difficulty, the girl pulled herself together and went to Jordan, hiding her tearful eyes. Do you already know? The reddened eyes and the mournful smile did not escape his inquisitive gaze. I'm sorry I won't be able to carry you in my arms into our home, but I'm happy to have been by your side these past few years. I don't have much left in this world, but even at the last minute, I will remember every day I spent with you. What are you saying? Whispered Mary, tears preventing her from looking at him. We'll get through this. You can't leave me. It's not fair. Unfortunately, nothing depends on us anymore. Soon I won't even be able to talk to you, and then I won't be able to feel anymore. I'll be there for you. I'll take a sabbatical and take care of you. Thank you, Jordan said quietly. I'm tired. He closed his eyes. Mary took his hand and pressed it to her lips. His once strong hand lay limply in hers. The girl had almost lived in the hospital, going to the apartment just to wash and pay the bills. She did not believe that all this was happening in Java, refused to accept the fact that Jordan had less and less strength every day. He was falling into oblivion more and more often. At such moments, Mary was overcome with despair. She cried silently, her heart racing. Mary. Suddenly she heard the quiet voice of her beloved. Don't cry, please. It hurts me unbearably to see you like this. Forgive me. Wiping her tears, the girl whispered. Her lips trembled. She could not cope with the hopelessness that had seized her. I won't cry anymore. She even tried to smile. You know, I'm glad I was able to be happy, even if only for a short time. I'm grateful you're here with me now, not leaving me for dead. How could I, because I love you? And I love you. I'm not afraid to die. I'm even looking forward to death. It will free me from pain. And you must live. Try to be happy. From up there in the sky, I'll watch over you and enjoy your happiness. I can't do it without you. Mary took his hands. They were icy. She pressed against them, trying to warm them. Hot tears flowed down her cheeks. Why should I live when you won't be there? Don't cry, my darling. We will all go away sometime. It's only a matter of time. We'll surely meet you later, up there in heaven. I'd love to see what you'll be like in your old age. He smiled. For 1 minute there were cheerful sparkles in his eyes, as before. Then Jordan's face was distorted with a grimace of pain. You go on tired. I want to be alone. He closed his eyes. Mary carefully got up, stood gazing into the pale native face, on which the disease had imprinted the imprint of hopelessness, and left. In the morning she awoke to a sharp phone call, grabbed the receiver, her heart clenched. Mary, I'm sorry for your loss. Jordan is gone. The girl buried herself in her pillow and screamed and cried. How could I not feel that he was saying goodbye to me? She scolded herself at the top of her voice. Left alone, didn't even say sorry, didn't even kiss him goodbye. Why? Why had it happened to him? Oh my God! I'll never see his smile again, never be able to talk to him again. How could I do that? Why? Finally the sobs subsided. Mary cried silently, and in her head she heard Jordan's voice and his last words. His smiling face stood before her as if alive. When she had cried all her tears, she fell into a heavy sleep. She vaguely remembered the day of the funeral, the people who had helped her. It seemed that together with Jordan, the life had gone out of her forever. She shriveled up, blackened with grief, did not react to the words of her friends and parents. She closed herself in her apartment and gave herself to grief alone. My daughter, her mother pleaded with her. Come home, how are you alone? No, Mom, Mary answered firmly. I have to finish my studies. I want to save people. I want to save people like Jordan. Recognize this terrible disease early so people don't die. I have to do this for his memory. He wanted me to graduate so badly, and I'll do it, no matter what it takes. But you're all alone out there, cried the mother, pitying her daughter. You'll come to your senses at home, and then you can go back to school. Listen to me. Your father and I are heartbroken for you. No, I don't want you to coddle me, pity me. I'm among my friends here. I'll go back to the dormitory. I've got 6 months left. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. I'm strong. If I didn't die at once with Jordan, I'll definitely survive now. Mary returned to the dormitory and plunged into her studies. After passing her final exams with flying colors, she asked to be sent home to work at the local hospital. Mary, her classmates called her. Shall we go to a restaurant? It's a big occasion, graduation. We'll all sit together. When else can we get together as a class? No, girls. Thanks for the invitation. I'm going home. Tickets are in my pocket. I can't stay here any longer. So many memories. Every street, every cafe, everything reminds me of Jordan. I want to forget everything and start living again. Home and walls help. The girl said goodbye to her friends and, having packed her suitcase, went to the bus station. She got off the bus at her station, breathed in the air familiar from her childhood. She smiled and walked towards home. When she got out on the station square, she looked around in search of acquaintances, but saw no one. Suddenly her gaze lingered on an old gypsy woman. Her face seemed vaguely familiar to Mary. The girl stopped, looking at the woman stealthily, trying to figure out how she knew her. The gypsy woman was staring at her too, as if waiting for the girl to finally recognize her and approach. As if hypnotized, Mary walked towards the gypsy woman to meet her. The closer she came, the more she was tormented by the thought that she knew her. Suddenly, the girl cried out as if struck by thunder. "You! Did you recognize her?" The older woman grinned crookedly, revealing dark, sparse teeth. "Yes, it's hard to recognize me now, and I've only just turned 50. She laughed hoarsely, then coughed hoarsely. "It's really hard to recognize you. But I was young. I didn't really remember you. It's been so many years you've changed," the girl whispered. She could not believe her eyes. From a beautiful, lively, insolent gypsy, Rosa turned into a decrepit old woman with gray, dull hair, curled fingers, once soft, lustrous, tenacious hands, incessantly rubbed a bright, multicolored shawl carelessly thrown over her shoulders. His face, mottled with wrinkles, had shriveled, and only his eyes, black and radiant, remained alive. And it was this incongruity of eyes and appearance that struck Mary most of all. "Don't try to console me. I know all about me, and I know about you that I came home because I buried my fiancé. He burned to death in 4 months. Where are you from?" The girl was amazed. "I know." Rosa coughed again, covering her mouth with the end of the shawl. "He took away my curse and freed you with pain and agony. You'll meet your destiny soon and you'll be happy. What happened to you? 50 years old is not an age. I brought the disease on myself. I cursed you. I committed a great sin, so God punished me. I ruined my health. Never, you hear, never wish harm to anyone. It will come back to you 100-fold. Not all at once, but gradually. I wanted to punish your mother, but I punished myself. God sees everything who hurts whom. Do you need any help? You're kind." A tear rolled down the wrinkled cheek of the gypsy woman. "But I don't need your help. Go, your parents are waiting for you. Hurry to meet your destiny." Mary wandered home, walked a respectful distance away, looked back. The gypsy woman was still standing in the same place, looking after her with her hand, covering her eyes from the sun like a visor. Her hunched figure evoked nothing but pity in Mary's soul, not even anger toward her. "Mary!" Her mother ran out of the house to meet her, embraced her, cried, "Poor you, my poor sufferer, when will all the misfortunes end?" "They're over, Mom." Hugging her in return, said the girl, "I met a gypsy woman at the station. The same one. Remember Rosa? How could you recognize her? It's been so many years. You were just a little girl. Has she changed? Maybe I wouldn't have recognized her. She beckoned me to her, like she was hypnotic. She said Jordan had lifted the curse from me. Oh my God, I'm so happy. I can't believe it. Oh, why am I keeping you out of the house? Come on, let's go. My father is worried sick about you. Listen, Father, what's your daughter saying?" Jenna didn't know how to express her joy. "All our troubles are over. The gypsy told her so. Is that old witch still alive? If I'd known what she looked like, I'd have shaken her out of my soul and gotten her to lift the curse from you sooner. Will you show her to me later, my daughter? I'll deal with her. I'll get even for every tear you shed. Daddy, I won't need your help. She's punished herself. She's so sick. What's the matter with her soul? I feel sorry for her. I wouldn't want to be in her shoes. That's what she should do." Father said in his heart, "How can the earth still carry her?" The girl, as the dearest guest, was seated at the table. Behind the conversations, oohs, sighs, the time passed unnoticed. "What will you do next?" Asked my father. "I'm going to get a job. They're waiting for me at the hospital. Of course they are. Mother snorted. They're always short of people there, and here the whole doctor has arrived. I'm not quite a doctor yet. I have to practice first, but I'm looking forward to going to work. You should at least get some rest. You're all skin and bones. You're not taking care of yourself. I don't want to stay at home. At least I'll forget about work a little, and there and meet a good man. My mother picked up on it. We're not old now. It's time to nurse grandchildren. Mom, I don't want to think about anyone right now. Men have no place in my life, at least not yet. That's not right, Father remarked. A young woman should be thinking about men. No, I've had enough of men. The one I would like to be with is probably married long ago, and I don't need others. I'm fine on my own. Didn't you just say that about David? Asked the mother, looking intently at her daughter. It doesn't matter. Mary was embarrassed. Forget it. I don't want to talk about David or anyone else. I came here to work, not to have affairs. He never married. He became a big man, a farmer. He's such a nice man, the girls are all over him, but he won't let them. That's right. The other day he brought a new tractor. My father told my mother. He's made a good fortune. But he hasn't brought a woman into the house, so he lives alone. Good luck to him, said Mary, and her heart gave a happy twinge. Enough about him. Let's change the subject. And anyway, I'm tired. I want to rest from the road. Tomorrow I'm going to apply for a job. The next morning, Mary went to the local hospital. They welcomed her cordially, told her everything, showed her everything, drew up the documents. Encouraged, the girl returned home. She walked and remembered how she and David had walked along the streets of their village. Mary was thinking so much that she did not notice that a car stopped next to her. A young man jumped out and blocked the road. Mary, hello. She heard the girl. She looked up and shuddered. David was standing in front of her. Yes, her David, the one she loved madly, the one she had driven away, afraid of the curse, the one she had never forgotten. Hello, answered a dumbfounded Mary. She was confused, unprepared to meet him like this. He hadn't changed a bit in the years they hadn't seen each other, but he had grown older, and there was a deep wrinkle between his eyebrows. I'm so glad to see you. The man looked at her tenderly. How are you, Mary? Married? I was. A shadow came over the girl's face. No luck with your husband. He died. She answered briefly. I'm sorry. I didn't know. David was embarrassed. Look, he suggested suddenly. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's go to a cafe, sit down, talk. I'm sorry. I don't want to be out in public. I'm not in the mood. Then let's go to the river. Remember where we used to vacation? Okay. Unexpectedly, the girl agreed. David helped her into the car. All the way they were silent, each thinking about his own. David stopped. They got out of the car and went to the beach. They sat down on the rocks, heated by the sun. They were still warm from the evening coolness. How did you get here? The man asked. For a long time? Or just to visit your parents? I've had a job. Nothing keeps me in the city anymore. I got my diploma and came straight here. It's peaceful here, my parents are near, and I don't need anything else. You're still the same. Suddenly David said, turning to her, tender, vulnerable, yum, I missed you. You know, when I saw you now, I suddenly realized that I never stopped loving you. No woman has ever been able to get rid of the thought of you. Mary nervously rubbed the strap of her bag in her hands. Traitorous tears boiled in her eyes. And you? The man continued after a moment's silence. Were you happy these years? Yes, I was, Mary confessed. But my happiness was short-lived. I still wonder why you decided to break up so abruptly. Were you afraid that I would carry out my threat and not allow you to study and work? I was young and stupid then. I just didn't want you to leave. If I could take it all back, it's not about you. Then what is it? I've wanted to go to your parents and ask them about it so many times. Then I wanted to go to you and demand an explanation, but I did neither, respecting your choice. I felt so bad without you. I even started to drink, but I came to my senses. I'm sorry, I should have confessed everything right away. But you wouldn't have believed me. You convinced me to stay. And I couldn't, I couldn't do it. So why did you leave me? I don't understand. Can you tell me now? It was the curse. And Mary told David the whole story in great detail. He listened, looking at her in horror. Now you realize that I couldn't stay with you or you would have died. When one after another of your misfortunes began to happen to you, I was really frightened. I didn't know which of them would end in tragedy. Then I made a very hard decision to send you away. The girl cried. What could I do? I didn't want to spend the rest of my life blaming myself for your death. It was the easiest solution. Parting is not the worst loss.